What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Comic Breakdown. In this video, we are going to be covering the full series by Jed McKay of Moon Knight. This is the life and death of Moon Knight. After Khonshu had been imprisoned, Moon Knight finds himself more in a probationary period. The Avengers are keeping a close eye on him, worried that he might turn again and become one of the biggest threats that they have ever faced. And so while they keep a watchful eye on him, Moon Knight is starting over. He is going back down to the street level. He's gonna start knocking some heads. And as we see Moon Knight going along this path, he finds some new friends, an interaction with Blade, a revelation that there is a second Moon Knight, a second fist of Khonshu known as Hunter's Moon. Moon Knight finding allies along the way, building what he calls the Midnight Mission, a haunting, terrifying place to anybody that is not a friend of Moon Knight. And over the course of 30 issues, you will dive into the psyche of Moon Knight. You will understand who he is, what he represents, but it all ends in tragedy, because with Khonshu imprisoned, there is no more resurrection for our Fist of Khonshu, which means when a Fist of Khonshu dies, there is no return, and that day has finally come for Mark Spector. And before we dive into this, I do want to let you guys know some of these videos are really old. 30 issues means we've covered pretty much 2.5 years of Moon Knight comics. And so some of these videos are of lower quality. Back when my audio just wasn't there, it wasn't the same. But a unique thing you will get out of this if you watch the video is you will see the progression of the channel, of my audio, of how I do all of this. Because issue 1, I'm not gonna lie, the quality isn't as good, but if you get...
Alright guys, so as we dive into this issue, it's picking us up with Moon Knight taking care of his neighborhood, because he has opened up what he calls the Midnight Mission. And this is where people in his neighborhood that are in his quote-unquote congregation, they can come and ask for some help. And the biggest issue that the community is having currently is vampires. They've been kidnapping people in the middle of the night, turning them, and then sending these new vampires out to infect new individuals. And as this is in progress, this is when Moon Knight steps in. Moon Knight gliding down, heading directly into the windshield of this vehicle, causing it to flip, and all of the vampires come piling out. And Moon Knight tells them that he warned them, that he paints this symbol all over his territory. And he does this for 2 reasons. 1, so people know that they are safe, and 2, to allow them to know where they are not allowed. Because this is his territory, this is his congregation, and it is his responsibility and his duty to uphold and protect the people as they travel through the night. And with that, he takes a wooden stake and he drives it through the chest of all of these vampires. But when he comes up to these freshly turned vampires, he goes to drive the stake in, but he hesitates. He stops because these individuals, regardless of them being vampires, they are innocents. They didn't do anything wrong. They were freshly turned and they haven't committed any atrocities that Moon Knight is aware of. One of them even claims to have been a vegan prior to this transformation. And so in this moment, Moon Knight spares them. He spares them because they are innocents. They did nothing wrong. This was all forced upon them. And right now, Moon Knight is having a conversation with a therapist, a brand new therapist to him. And he is explaining all of this to this new therapist because the therapist is really trying to find out who Moon Knight is, who Mark Spector is, trying to dig down and really have a grasp and an understanding so she can help try to treat him. And of course, this is all by the request of the Avengers. And as their conversation continues on, they talk more about his duty, about this mission, this church that he started. And of this church, he is the high priest of Khonshu, and he became the high priestess back when he was a mercenary. Because Mark Spector, he was once a US Marine. He eventually made his way into the CIA and then he started working in the private sector. But the truth of the matter, at the end of the day, once he got deep into that private sector, he really became a bad guy. He became the bad man doing bad things in places nobody has ever heard of. And he did all of this strictly for money. But one day he grew a conscience. And in growing this conscience, he ended up turning on all of his mercenary buddies. He made a stand and he went against them. And in doing this, this caused his death. And with his body lying dead at the foot of the Egyptian god of the moon, with him lying dead, with his body lying bloody, the god brought him back to life. Moon Knight was given back his life in exchange for being the fist of the god, being the fist of Khonshu. Now at this point, this is when a regular therapist would really start questioning and being skeptical of all of this, brushing it off as nothing more than a mental health issue. But because this comes from the Avengers, she understands that this situation, it could be quite unique and it could be quite different. And so really she's just analyzing him. She's trying to figure out exactly what makes him tick, what drives him, what compels him to continuously work for this god, especially a god that is currently imprisoned, and we'll get more into that here in a little bit. But there is one thing that the therapist would like to know, and that one thing is, can Moon Knight die? And as it stands, he doesn't even know, because by all accounts, he has technically died twice, and each time he has come back. Now, in between these therapy sessions, he's going out and he's helping people to the best of his ability. Anytime somebody comes up to the mission with a new request, he goes out, stalking the rooftops, waiting for these monsters to crawl out of the shadows. And we see him beating the crap out of these guys and throwing them around, throwing one of them out the window. He gives them the ultimatum, because this is no monster, this is no vampire, this is Vermin, one of Spider-Man's villains. And now with the ability to clone itself and multiply, it could be a dangerous adversary, but Moon Knight doesn't mess around. And Moon Knight lets it know it has one option here, and that option is to leave, because if you decide to stay here, Moon Knight isn't going to mess around. Moon Knight is not Spider-Man. Moon Knight will straight up kill you. And so the option is on the table. Either you stay out of my territory, or you die. Plain and simple, no questions about it. And this is where we pick back up with our therapy session. And right now, they want to talk about the god that he serves, the duty that he feels like he needs to continue. Now, Moon Knight is not in any kind of illusion state. Moon Knight completely understands that Khonshu is not a worthy god, not worthy of the worship or anybody's for that matter. Moon Knight knows that Khonshu tried to take over the world, and as he sits in that prison in Asgard right now, even if that god is unworthy, Moon Knight still feels like he has a duty as the fist, as Khonshu's fist, as a high priestess. Whether he likes it or not, he's entangled with this estranged god, and he has taken on that god's duty as his own. He really feels like it's a debt that is being paid. Because the god brought him back to life, he feels like he has to continue on this god's work, the duty that this god once done, and that is protecting the people, to being the pathfinder, to being the defender of the night. So in the most simplistic way to put it, he is a man who is currently at strains with his god. Some would even call him a heretic. But that's what will bring us to Moon Knight catching up with an individual who is pinned down 8-Ball. And Moon Knight came here to save the day, but it looks like the doctor of this clinic had already taken care of him, beating him down to the ground. The doctor is actually relatively excited to meet Moon Knight, wondering when Moon Knight would show up so they could actually have a conversation. Now at first, Moon Knight is a little hesitant, because anybody who wants to meet Moon Knight usually has some kind of ill intention, but it's nothing of that sense. If anything, it really seems like he has respect for him, saying that he is a fist of Khonshu, saying that he has a sacred duty to uphold. And this obviously catches his attention, someone that seems to know a lot about the god and his duty. But we learn that the doctor is actually more or less from home office, and he tells Moon Knight that he's actually disappointed with what he has seen, because as it stands, his god is currently sitting imprisoned, and what is his fist doing? Because as it stands, vampires are running wild, they're running everywhere, so much so that he would even call this blasphemy. And so this gets Moon Knight questioning, like, who the heck are you? Who are you to even be questioning me? Because I'm pretty sure I outrank you. No matter what rank you are in the church, I'm sure I'm higher than you. But he tells Moon Knight that he is nothing more than a simple doctor, but ensures Moon Knight that there is nobody except for one individual that is above him, and that individual is not Moon Knight. Now, picking back up with our therapist, they're going over what really has happened to him. Now, historically, we have heard stories about people being touched by angels, being touched by a god. And when this happens, there is usually some kind of drastic change in the individual. And though he may have a dissociative identity disorder, it's much deeper than that, because he's had brain-to-brain contact with a god, or at least how they would define a god. And all the MRI scans, all the brain scans, they show some kind of activity. There is some kind of change that happened, and it is continuously still happening. And so the doctor worries right now. She is concerned on what changes that he has gone through and what changes that might still occur, because this is really unmarked territory. This is uncharted waters for all scientists and them. But that's when we're taken to Midnight Mission a little bit later on, and Moon Knight, he's relaxing, finally able to take some time off, get off his feet a little bit and just relax just for a second. And him and Reese are sitting here having a coffee, and they are talking about just everything that's been going on and how people can see him as crazy. And it makes things really hard, especially when they're right, because at the end of the day, he has no illusion of his sanity. But that doesn't stop him from continuing his job. He truly does believe that there is a reason he's come back from the dead over and over again, and that's because of his sacred duty. Now, while they're having this conversation, somebody across the way, hiding in the shadows of a building, they have spy gear, and it appears that they've been watching Moon Knight for quite some time. Now, this person is completely offended by Moon Knight, by everything that Moon Knight thinks he stands for, by this sacred duty, all of it. Our shadow figure just believes that this is all baloney and has every intention of making Moon Knight, making him break his faith, making it to where he believes in absolutely nothing, taking everything away from him, because only then will we truly see who Moon Knight is. But that's when we pick up with our doctor, and with him making his way home, he goes to a statue of the god, and he starts praying, saying that he has remained faithful, and though the left fist has been failing, even though he has strayed from his purpose, Khonshu's right fist is going to make the corrections, is going to correct Moon Knight and put him back on the right track. And this is where we're introduced to Hunter's Moon. This is the opposite to Moon Knight, and it is the right fist to his left. Alright gang, so as we dive into issue number 2 of Moon Knight, we are picking up at the Midnight Mission, with Moon Knight and Reese having a conversation about the latest issues that are going inside the neighborhood. Those issues being elderly people attacking random civilians, not having any motive, not understanding why, and the elderly people having no recollection of what happened or of the attacks. Moon Knight sees this as an opportunity to really help out the neighborhood and find out what the heck is going on with all of the old people. And while they're discussing this, trying to figure out what the best course of action is, this is when Soldier walks through the door. With him making the entrance into the room, he is bloody, he is beaten, because the elderly people, they just attacked him. And so rushing him inside, they sit him down and they start patching him up. And as they patch him up, they investigate, they interrogate and find out exactly what happened to him, where this happened, and how they can solve this problem. Now Soldier, or at least that's what everybody in the neighborhood calls him, he's a very capable individual. He could have definitely cracked some skulls and beat some old people up. The only issue is his mother was with all of them. They seem to have no control over themselves and they just want to do violence. And so being able to at least defend himself and get away from them, he came here in hopes to be able to figure out exactly what happened. With his mother being a part of this, and also giving the information that it's not just his mother, but all of the elderly people that live in her building, that live in his building. And while they're doing all of this, Reese starts to smell blood. Being a newly turned vampire, this is extremely triggering for her. Smelling this fresh blood, she's got to get out of here. She's got to get out of here before she eats this guy right here and right now. And so with her making the exit, Moon Knight and Soldier, they make their way to his mother's apartment. And so we see the two of them making their way to his apartment. As they go up the stairs, they pass a janitor that seems relatively innocent. And as they go into the room to look for his mother, she is not there. All the lights are turned off. But Moon Knight, he got a really weird feeling. And getting this weird feeling, he turns around, telling Soldier he needs to hurry up, get in there and grab his gun, because they need to leave right now. Because as he turns around, he is surrounded by old people that are ready to cut him to pieces. And with the janitor standing right there, Janitor Hallie, he praises Moon Knight for realizing so quickly. But this is what Moon Knight does. He picks up on these things and knew almost immediately that the janitor was almost giving away everything by saying sport, by trying to make light of things. But his only real question is how the janitor is doing this. And he reveals that it's his sweat. His sweat is what makes it able for him to be able to control people. Once they ingest it, once they get a dose of it, it gives him control. The only issue is it's really hard to get people to drink your sweat. And so what he's been doing is tapping into the water supply of the building. With them being old people, they don't need a very high dose. They can't really fight this off. And so because of that, it was a great plan. Being a janitor gave him access to the water system, and now he has control over all of this. And what he plans to do here is make Moon Knight fight his way out. If Moon Knight is caught killing innocent elderly people, it would absolutely ruin his reputation and bring this neighborhood to its knees. And if Moon Knight thought he may have some help from Soldier, that's when Soldier comes out and he is in a white tux now with a gun to Moon Knight's head. Because this is something that the janitor has been working on for quite some time. Well, yes, old people, it's very easy to manipulate them. He's been working on taking over Soldier for quite some time. And so this was all a ploy. This was all a plan to lure him in here. And so Moon Knight, realizing that he is really outgunned here and he doesn't have many options, he places a wager and he tells the janitor that if I take your sweat and I ingest a direct amount of it, it surely should take me over. And of course, the man, being arrogant, being egotistical, he immediately jumps on this, an opportunity to take over Moon Knight's mind. And so easily, so willingly. And so he agrees to this. Agreeing to it, we see him give him a little bit of sweat. Extremely excited, so happy that he's about to get this. Moon Knight tells him that he shouldn't be so joyful, because the thing about this is the janitor may have seen a lot of minds, maybe even dissociative personality disorder. But the thing about it is you've never seen a mind like Moon Knight. And with him taking the sweat into his mouth, he shows him something he has never seen before, taking him into a darkness that is swallowing him whole. An absolute nightmare. A place that is so indifferent, so alien, so cold, and so unescapable. And so we're seeing at the end of the day, he had no idea what he was in for. Going into this mind absolutely destroys him. And as they come out of this, all of the elderly people have been freed, and all of them extremely grateful. Soldier asks the questions. How did you do this? How did you freaking free us from this mind control? And on the ground, we see the janitor, drool coming out of his mouth, and the only word that he can say is moon. And picking up later that evening, he's sitting down with Reese and they're just having a discussion about her new powers, about her new urges, and the need to have blood. You know, they're both really fighting the darkness inside of them, but they're fighting this together, and they're redirecting this energy, they're redirecting it towards helping the community, to ridding the community of any kind of evil. Starting at one street at a time, this is the best way they know to give back, to do something that is worthy. Alright gang, so we are picking up and Moon Knight, he is talking to his therapist. Because right now, he is terrified that he has an enemy. And this is nothing new for Moon Knight. He's had tons of enemies over the years. tons of people that want to kill him, that want to ruin his plans, to destroy everything that he has built. He's had people try to break him. He has had the worst things imaginable happen. But at the end of the day, he is worrying that his biggest enemy, he is fearing that that enemy is himself. And that's when we pick up a little bit later, and Reese comes into the room. Now, she's a brand new vampire, more or less, and he's brought her on as his assistant. But she comes into the room completely irate because one of his Moon Knight darts, it was thrown at one of her friends. One of her friends that was turned to a vampire the same night she was. When Moon Knight rescued them, he had killed 2 other vampires. Now, she's heard stories of Moon Knight. She knows what he is capable of, the things that he has done to other people, to other vampires. And so she has to ask, is this him just attempting to finish off what he was already starting? And if that is the case, why didn't he kill them already? Why didn't he kill them on that night? Why let them live to come after them later on? Because someone tried to kill Ted tonight, and it's looking a lot like it was Moon Knight. And he lets her know, that definitely looks like one of mine. But at the end of the day, I didn't do this. Those 2 vampires, they were kidnappers and they were murderers. That's why I took them out. That I don't simply kill people just because of what they are. That I take them out because of who they are. And you and Ted were 2 innocent people in that day. And as it stands, you haven't kidnapped or murdered anybody. So I had no reason to kill you. But this is something that he didn't do. And so he tells her to go grab Ted, grab Soldier, and go ahead and bunker down inside of my ministry. Lock everything up, and I'm going to go out. I'm going to find out who is doing this. And as Moon Knight makes his way across the rooftops, this is where we see Hunter's Moon make his descent upon him, coming down and giving him a punch right across the face. And this is the standoff of Moon Knight and Hunter's Moon. Now, of course, Moon Knight, he had no clue that there was another fist. Now, obviously, it's an assumption that even men have 2 fists, but he didn't believe that there was another warrior from the god of Khonshu, a secret that was kept from Moon Knight. And the reason he is here is he has come to correct Moon Knight, to set him back on his path, to do the will of Khonshu. Because at the end of the day, he is a doctor, Dr. Batter, and he is here to heal him, to fix him, and make him how their god sees and should be. And we see these 2 beating the crap out of one another. Neither of them really getting the upper hand, both of them throwing some heavy freaking punches. And Hunter Moon, he admits to being the one that tried to take out that vampire, because that is their job. Vampires are the sworn enemy of Khonshu, because vampires, they lurk in the night that belongs to the god Khonshu. And so he did that to get attention, to get Moon Knight's attention and let him know that he is messing up. This is what he should be doing. But at the end of the day, you're not doing your responsibilities. And in fact, you are sheltering them and they are keeping under your protection. And as these 2 are both just beat to crap right now, he has to ask Moon Knight, what is wrong with you? Why aren't you fighting like a warrior of Khonshu? Telling him that there should be some kind of beauty in the way he fights. Because the Fist of Khonshu, the way the Fist should fight, is more of an art style than it is pure brutality. But at the end of the day, Moon Knight fights like an animal, when he should be moving with skill and prowess, like every Fist to ever serve Khonshu, just like Hunter Moon. And he asks him if he'd received the gift upon orientation, where the memories of Khonshu's previous fists were brought into his mind. And this is something that never happened to Moon Knight. All Khonshu ever gave him was his miserable freaking life back, and a little bit of brain damage, giving him a purpose, giving him a duty. And this is where Hunter Moon realizes that Moon Knight is far more broken than he could ever imagine. And he has every intention of helping him find his duty again, find his purpose, and fix him. And he is going to start by taking out all of his friends. And so with Moon Knight now down on the ground, struggling to get up, we see Hunter Moon, he makes his exit. And picking up at the ministry, everybody is sitting around just waiting for Moon Knight to come back. everybody a little nervous, everybody not knowing what's going to happen. But in an instant, we see Hunter's moon come breaking down through the door. And as he looks around, he is absolutely disgusted by what he sees. Because everything he sees is Moon Knight more or less creating his own cult, creating his own following. And this is blasphemy. With him gathering this congregation, Hunter Moon believes it is time to start thinning out the herd. But before he gets that opportunity, Moon Knight comes out from behind him. Wielding a baseball bat in his hand, he brings it down on Hunter's Moon. He hits him once, he hits him twice, he keeps beating the crap out of him, knocking him to the ground until he lays limp. And lets him know, Khonshu downloading memories into your mind, it's a cute little trick. And that might make you fight real fancy like. But you never earned all of this. Not like Moon Knight did. Through a lifetime of busted knuckles and broken bones and bloody horror. At the end of the day, Hunter Moon is simply a doctor that never went through these kind of struggles. And that's why he will never win. That's why Moon Knight will always come out on top. And though he's probably a fool for doing this, he's going to let him live. As he grabs him and drags him out of the ministry, he lets him know that you're going to live tonight. But before you decide that you're going to go after frightened children under his protection, whoever or wherever they may be, that he better has what it takes to kill Moon Knight. Because when he comes back, like he always does, they are going to find pieces of him all over the place. And he tells him, Fist of Khonshu, to drag yourself from my temple and avoid my attention in the future, unless you want me to become more interested in what you're doing. Alright gang, so as we dive into issue number 4, we are picking up with Moon Knight at his therapist. And the question is brought up, why do you wear that mask? Now, she is definitely used to hearing all the different reasons why a superhero would wear a mask. But every single one of them is different. Every single individual, they wear a mask for their own reasons. And it's pretty simple for Moon Knight. Because at the end of the day, when he puts this mask on, he is no longer Mark. He is nobody. No one needs Mark. But the Fist of Khonshu, people need him. He is a symbol, a dead man brought back in the pursuit of justice. His masked face is the face of Khonshu. And so this is him hiding his identity from the world, believing that nobody needs him. But the Fist of Khonshu, that is something that people love. That is something that people need. This is his need for acceptance, believing that his regular persona is an absolute nobody, that the world could have him die and no one would be the wiser. But the Fist of Khonshu can make a difference. People would be saddened by this loss. Now this is where we pick up with a conversation between Clark aka Rampage and a mystery individual. And our mystery man, he gives him a little bit of credit, saying that Rampage, he went from Silicon Valley to costume villain, and then he flipped and started working for the Punisher. That is until he got the face like a freaking Francis Bacon painting. And then he crewed up with Jigsaw, that is until Jigsaw tried to kill him. But the mystery man isn't insulting him, because Rampage has continued to come back. He is the comeback kid, and nothing is able to hold him down. Not the Punisher, not Jigsaw, absolutely nobody. And Rampage, he has a new racket going on. And that's exactly what our mystery man is trying to take advantage of. Because what Rampage has going on is he's found a way to hack into people's bank accounts. And this matters because he has found the accounts of Moon Knight. Hidden under the name of Steve Grant, Rampage has access to every single dollar that Moon Knight has saved up. Everything that helps him be a vigilante. Everything that pays for every single aspect of his life. The mystery man wanted to try and take down Moon Knight, and he sees this as the best way of doing it. Because at the end of the day, Moon Knight without any money, it turns him into just a normal, regular person. With no friends, no money, he will be absolutely helpless. Or at least this is the premise, this is the idea that Rampage has in his head. But that's what picks us up a little bit later, picking up with Moon Knight. his new young teenage vampire assistant, and coming through the front door is Tigra. Once upon a time, working as Avengers together, she has come by to see how he is doing, to see this new midnight mission that he has set up in the city. And we see these two catching up, and really she's messing with him, she's toying with him, just joking around. And we're seeing that the dynamic just isn't the same as it once was. That Moon Knight, he really has changed over the years. So much so, he won't even let her take the mask off of his face, saying that he wears it for protection. But at the same time, he was a producer on a TV show that was about Moon Knight. But really, she's just having some good-natured fun with him. But when she is here, he gets a phone call from Rampage, letting Moon Knight know that all of his money is currently in Rampage's hands. That if he doesn't do exactly what he says, that if he doesn't work for him, then he is going to pay. And he will pay by draining every cent from his bank account, saying that he will do what he is told. He will do it without hesitation, and any kind of hesitation will cost him $1 million every single time. And so Moon Knight, he heads out into the night, telling Moon Knight to never forget that he is now just an implement. He is a tool to be used. And sending him out on this mission, we see Moon Knight go crashing into a building, landing in a room full of men with suits and guns. All of these guns are drawn on him, and he is told to kill everybody here. And we see Moon Knight make quick work of everybody in this room, taking them all down. There is only one individual left standing. That individual is Jigsaw, because Rampage has sent Moon Knight here as some kind of revenge. Now, Moon Knight, he really has no intention of being used as somebody's attack dog. He has no intention of being under the thumb of anybody. But he thinks that, maybe I'll play along for a little bit, see where all of this plays out. Maybe I can find out exactly who is responsible and who is behind all of this. Seeing that this individual he was sent after is Jigsaw, it really narrows it down on the individuals that could be blackmailing him. But since he's got Jigsaw right here, he's gonna take that opportunity to put him down in the ground. Now, it doesn't show us this, but we assume that he takes Jigsaw down, only for him to be able and track down Rampage. Listening to the background music, listening to the festivities that are going on in the background, finding out what events were going on, being able to triangulate it, listening to the music, they were able to pinpoint his location. And so from that moment forward, it was only a matter of hunting him down. And with the help of Tigra, this was an absolute cakewalk. Now Rampage is trying to tell him, trying to let him know that if you come any closer to me, I will start dumping your money and I will make you absolutely nothing. But Moon Knight lets him know that it doesn't matter what I have, it doesn't matter who I know, it doesn't matter how much my wealth is. I am the Fist of Khonshu, and if I don't listen to anybody, not even my god, what makes you think that I would listen to you? Because he is Moon Knight, and there is nobody that has hold over him. And with Rampage just dumping his money away, Moon Knight moves in on him. And just like that, this is done, this is over with. And so it's not a bad night's work, taking down both Rampage and Jigsaw in the same night. But our story picks us up sitting on the rooftop. Both Moon Knight and Tigra sitting here having a conversation, with Tigra really trying to figure out what is different with him, what is going on with Moon Knight. Because there's something in him, something that wasn't in him back in the day. And no matter how hard he tries to hide this, he cannot hide it from her. And he lets her know that he has made a lot of bad choices. He's made a lot of mistakes, done a lot of bad things to people, mostly ones who deserved it, but also people who did not, even the ones who have loved him. And now they're all either dead or they hate him. I mean, he was carving moons into criminals' faces. And then he helped Khonshu take over the entire world. He betrayed every friend that he had in the Avengers, all because of the say-so of an insane moon god. And then he found out that he had a kid, that he has a daughter. But after the age of Khonshu, her mother took her away, left the country, and told him to never come for them, saying that he was simply too dangerous to be around. All day, people have been asking him, why does he wear this mask? What is it all about? And with him taking his mask off and looking Tigra in her eyes, he lets her know the real reason. It's so he doesn't have to look himself in the face. The amount of shame that he is feeling inside of him, everything that he has done over the years, all the bad things he has done. When he looks in the mirror, when he sees his real face, he sees nothing but shame. Alright gang, so as we dive into issue number 5, the therapist is letting him know that she has some concerns. Now these concerns, they surround him not telling the whole truth. Now he assumes it's automatically about his dissociative identity disorder, DID, but he hasn't had an episode in weeks. And when Jake or Steven do surface, it's usually only for a few minutes. But that's not what she's talking about today. She is talking about how he hasn't been completely honest with everything going on. Because at the end of the day, he's an extraordinarily high-functioning individual. He experiences high amounts of stress all the time. And because of this, his stress threshold has gone through the roof. And so his personalities, they don't usually pop up unless something extreme happens. Versus somebody who isn't a superhero, who doesn't wear this mask and go out and fight crime, who doesn't have the stress level he does, things that are less stressful would probably trigger them. But she lets him know that his deal with the Avengers is that he goes to this mandated therapy. Not only that, he tries his best to become a better person, but to do that, he has to be 100% honest with her. Now, throughout the rest of the comic, we will be continuing that conversation she has, but we do jump to later that evening. After he's already had this meeting, it has put him in an absolutely horrible mood. And because of that, he is ready to get out there on the streets and just kick some freaking butt. Luckily for him, Terry has already showed up and he has something. And what Terry tells him is that whoever's been gunning for Moon Knight, he knows who it is. And he tells Moon Knight that it is Soldier. Soldier is the one gunning for him. But picking up in our therapy, Moon Knight is telling her he doesn't understand what he is not being truthful about. He's logged all of his episodes. He submitted to multiple brain imaging sessions. In his opinion, he has been entirely transparent with her. But this isn't necessarily what she is referring to, because there are more to his mental health conditions than he wants to put on, saying that he's smart, resourceful, charismatic, which means that he is very good at hiding how he truly feels. And though he believes this to be completely ridiculous, she asks the question, is it really? Because tell me your honest answer of why you insist on being masked. But the question she asks next is really what makes him question everything. The question is, why are you unhappy? Now this is where we pick up with Moon Knight kicking in the door of Soldier's apartment. Or at least this is what Terry is telling us, saying that he followed Soldier here and he found it kind of weird because Soldier lives with his mother in another apartment a couple blocks away. And as the two of them look around, they find all of this super high-tech gear, laser mics, recording equipment, surveillance gear, and all of this is pointed directly at his mission. And as Terry looks at all of this, he's just in awe, wondering, is this guy some kind of CIA, FBI? Where is this guy coming from? But we see Moon Knight, he finds a picture of Soldier back in the day, and on his chest it says, "Hail Hydra." And back inside of our therapy session, we are talking about what makes him unhappy. Why is he so unhappy? And he answers that with, why should I be happy? When has happiness ever mattered to the Fist of Khonshu? Because at the end of the day, he doesn't have happy. He has his duty. He has the debt that he has to pay. But the therapist, she knows that this is him just deflecting. Because that is what Moon Knight would say. That is what the mask would say. And this puts him at pause, as he takes a minute to think about everything that she just said to him, he asked the simple question, "Are you Jewish?" Because we know that his religion, before he found the Fist of Khonshu, that he was a Jew. He was a devoted Jew. His father was a devoted Jew. And we're going to see how that plays a part as we go further into this session. But right now, we are picking up with him later that evening doing his best to try and track down Soldier. Because right now, it appears that Soldier is working for or has worked for Hydra in the past. Now, since then, he has blocked out all of his tattoos, so we don't know that he is working for Hydra until this moment. Regardless if it was past or present, regardless if he is still working with them or not, he knows one thing is for sure, is this Soldier had all of that surveillance equipment pointed directly at the mission, and so he has been keeping an eye on him. And so instead of trying to track down Soldier all through the night, he goes to the one place he knows Soldier will eventually come back, and that is his mother's house. But picking back up in our therapy session, we are picking up with Moon Knight talking about how there's being Jewish and then there's being raised by a rabbi. Because his father was the kindest, gentlest man he had ever known. But there was never anything kind or gentle inside of Mark. His father, being a man of peace, he absolutely hated violence. And Mark believed that is what made his father weak. A weak man serving an indifferent God. Because at the end of the day, that was the Jewish stories. We lost our homes, our land, they were enslaved, and then escaped into the desert. And from then until now, they have simply just taken their licks from practically everyone in human history. And his father taught him that their perseverance was their people's greatest quality. How they never gave up on their faith, their laws, their covenant with God, how they could laugh to keep from crying no matter what happened to them. So when he died in Selma, he doesn't feel like anyone could blame him for accepting the Khonshu's offer. He put aside his God, who had let terrible things happen to his people, a God he had never seen, never heard, in favor of a God who spoke right to him and promised, "Join me, be my son, and together we will get things done." And he tells her that all his life, he thought his father was weak because he was kind and gentle and would never raise a hand in violence. But he would have died before he broke his faith with God, before recognizing another. Because at the end of the day, he truly does feel like he is the weak one. He sold out everything he had ever been raised to believe in to save his own neck, to further indulge in his addiction to violence. He traded his father's God that took them out of Egypt for a new God that kept them there. And so what he is really saying is that he regrets his decision. He got his life back, but what good is it? He buried his father, he killed his brother. His friends, either they're dead or they hate him. And when he was asked by a god to take down the Avengers and put his boot on the world's neck, that is exactly what he did. And he did it well. He did what he was told, what was supposed to be the right thing to do, no matter what his ears, his eyes, his soul told him. But at the end of the day, he didn't help a single person. And now his kid, her mother are an ocean away because they're scared of him. You know, the therapist, she couldn't understand before why he would take being the Fist of Khonshu so seriously when it cost him so much. And it's not that it cost him so much. Being the Fist of Khonshu, it took everything from him. It's because he doesn't have anything left. If he is not the Fist of Khonshu, whatever he chooses to understand that is, then he is just Mark Spector, the man who always makes the wrong choice every single time. The man who threw away his religion, his heritage, killed what family he didn't bury, the man who brought him harm and trauma to everyone who ever cared about him. The man who couldn't breathe from the guilt of crossing over his head. And it's no wonder that he developed DID, because at the end of the day, he would rather be anybody else than Mark Spector. Now that's where we pick up later that evening, and Moon Knight has found Soldier, currently chained up with a radio above his head, saying that this is a twist all along. This Soldier wasn't the one keeping eyes on him. This has all been a trap set up to bring Moon Knight here. And with Moon Knight doing everything he can to try and break this chain, with it being hardened steel, he can't just simply break it with brute strength. And through the radio, he is being told that he has two options. Moon Knight could walk away right now, declare that he is a phony, declare that he is nothing more than a chumped up hero, that he is a fake, then the bomb in this place will not be detonated. Or he can try and save Soldier's life. And that will be the end of Moon Knight and Soldier, because it will detonate prior to them being able to escape. Now, of course, Moon Knight, he's not gonna let Soldier die. Regardless of Soldier's past, regardless of who he was, none of this was his fault. And so, grabbing the chain, he breaks out his microplasma torch, a toy from his wealthier days, and his only hope right now is that he is able to cut through this chain before that bomb reaches its 0 mark and detonates. And so as the two of them are struggling with great effort to break this chain, with Soldier and Moon Knight pulling on it as he cuts through it with the microplasma laser. And this is where we see the detonation. The entire building goes up in flames, but Moon Knight was able to get them out underneath the streets. Coming up in front of the building from one of the manholes, this is where we see Terry. Terry was the mastermind behind this the entire time, standing there greeting Moon Knight, saying that he underestimated him, but this is going to be fun. Terry seeming like a complete and utter psychopath. But he tells Moon Knight that Terry never actually existed, and his real name is Zodiac. Alright gang, so as we dive into issue number 6, we are picking up with Moon Knight just getting his butt kicked by the Zodiac. With him beating the crap out of Moon Knight, getting the upper hand on him, Moon Knight is currently pretty banged up. So much so that he is not able to get to his feet and fight back, telling the Zodiac that if you are going to kill me, just do it already, because I'll come back like I always do, and you are going to pay for everything that you have done here today. But the Zodiac has no intention of killing Moon Knight. In fact, he wants to do the exact opposite. He wants to make him better. He wants to make him stronger. He wants to break Moon Knight because he theorizes if he breaks the hero, then it will help him. It will help him grow into what he needs to be, telling him that he has so much potential, that if he didn't live in the hypocrisy that he lives in, he might actually be worth something. And while this whole dialogue is going on, what we see is the vampire, his assistant known as Reese, running to somebody's door, running to get some kind of help before Moon Knight gets killed. And currently the Zodiac is letting him know that Moon Knight had passed all of his tests. So much so that he's even kind of impressed by it, delighted because of it. Not expecting this game to go on for so long, he truly has been enjoying every aspect of it. And so he's not going to kill him, he's going to leave him with what he calls motivation, saying this Soldier will be his next victim, and there is nothing he can do to stop him. That is, until the other fist of Khonshu makes his arrival, because this is who Reese went and grabbed. Brothers in arms, brothers to the same god. There is no way in hell he was going to let anyone kill Moon Knight. This throws Zodiac completely off, not even knowing that there was another fist. But recognizing this situation might be a little bit out of hand for him, this is where he makes his exit, disappearing in a flash. Not knowing where he went, we see the Fist of Khonshu pick up Moon Knight and take him back to get patched up. Now, of course, this is the last person that Mark would ever want to see. Mr. Badir, the other Fist of Khonshu, the last time they met, he had said that he was going to kill him. The last time they saw each other, he had gotten kicked off a building. And he lets them know that he may not respect him, he may not even like him, but at the end of the day, they have the same God, the same Father, and that makes them brothers. And so while he sits here and patches up Moon Knight, he lets him know that the last time they spoke, he called him broken. And it wasn't an idle jab. This is something that he understands very deeply and personally because he was broken as well. A young boy that was born in Egypt. His parents had both been doctors, and so of course he took after them. He was serious as a child as much as he is as an adult. a model student in all subjects. But when he compared himself to his peers, to his family, to everyone, he always found himself wanting. Everyone else had something that he did not. It's because he never felt the presence of God, not like everyone else had. He studied the Quran. He did everything he could to find that closeness to the God everyone is talking about, but he never felt it. And so it made him feel like he was missing something. If everyone else can believe in this God, why can I not? Why does Allah not speak to me? But eventually he finds the answer to this, because the answer wasn't in the Quran. He continued to pray, to do the right practices, to do everything he was instructed to do. He lived a good, a nice life, but he always felt like there was something missing. And it was at night. He was walking by himself as often as he always did. And that is when the vampires came, ganging up on him and draining him of every ounce of blood. That is when Khonshu came to him. That is when the moon descended down to him and gave him a great gift, offering him life and offering him a divine purpose. Now, while he does this whole little talk and this whole little spiel he's got going on, he is wrapping Moon Knight up like a mummy. But finally, for the first time, he knew what God was, what he spent his whole life longing for. And this is something that Mark has taken for granted for quite some time. Something that he would simply throw away to the side. But what really changed his mind about Mark, to make him come and help him, to actually recognize that they are brothers, one and the same, is Reese, the young vampire assistant. She came to him knowing that he would want to kill her. She was willing to end her life if it meant saving Moon Knight. Recognizing this kind of bravery, it has challenged everything he thought he believed, what he thought about Moon Knight, and the people that he is surrounding himself with. Putting him in a coffin, we see the moon god come and talk to Mark, telling him that he misses him and it is time for him to pay a visit. With one day passing, we see Mr. Badir come up and open up the coffin, with Mark coming out of it, taking these bandages off, his body completely aching, but he can move. He is still alive after being blown up and beat nearly to death. And before he makes his exit, Mr. Badir lets him know that I'm not sure that you're really fit for the title still. I'm going to see, I'm going to watch. And if I find out that you are not what you should be, I will do something about it. But as it stands, we are brothers. And so with him putting on his suit and heading out into the streets, he is met up by Greer and Reese, the two of them waiting for him, and they're trying to figure out what their next course of action is. What are we going to do next? Because Zodiac, aka Terry just being a persona to get into the door. And Moon Knight, he is not concerned about the Zodiac, knowing that he will eventually pop up again, and when he does, they will handle him like they have handled every other crisis. But as it stands, they need to get their workshop back up and running, because as they go back to their front, going inside, they recognize this place has been completely destroyed, and waiting inside is Soldier, letting him know that he's got a dirty history. He tried leaving it all behind, but Moon Knight has saved his life twice and his mother's life, saying that from now on, he is his guy. For life, whatever he needs, whenever, no question about it. Now, their building may be burned down, but their mission is still what it needs to be. To protect this community, no matter what the cost. Alright gang, so as we dive into issue number 7, we have Moon Knight walking into the bar with no name, letting them know that yes, he has always known about this place. The only reason he has never come in here is because he never wanted anything from anyone in this place. But to establish some kind of parameters, he lets them know that he is not Spider-Man and he is not the Punisher, with the two of them representing the extreme ends of the spectrum. This is Moon Knight. That no one in this bar, to include himself, knows exactly what he is capable of. A man who has beat the Avengers. And with the pleasantry and introduction out of the way, he only has one more word for them. And that word is Zodiac. because he has come to the bar with no name to get information, to find out any known associates. The bar with no name, someone here is going to know where Zodiac is, or at the very least, know who he associates with. Now, picking up with his therapist, Moon Knight is having a discussion about this Zodiac, and it appears by all accounts that no one really knows who Zodiac is. At least no one willing to talk to him has any clue of who he might be. And the reality of the situation is he's not really on anyone's, at least when it comes to the Avengers, he's not really on anyone's Hanukkah list, except for Ben Grimm. He is the only one to ensure that he sends a card every holiday season. But what we are really seeing is him just trying to break down who this Zodiac might be, with people who might be able to actually help him. His therapist being a therapist for freaking Avengers and superheroes alike. This is a good spot for him to try to break down the situation and figure out what course of action he's really gonna go down next. And that is where we pick up with Greer, currently on the phone having a conversation about Moon Knight, talking about this new Zodiac individual that seems hell-bent on taking down Mark Spector. Not really sure who this is, Greer made this phone call in some kind of hopes of finding out the identity or at least the whereabouts of Zodiac. But it appears whoever she is on the phone with is having her keep tabs on Moon Knight, but picking up with Moon Knight now getting some kind of trail that leads them to 8-Ball. With 8-Ball trying to run away from all of them, it is only a matter of time before he ends up being caught, and Moon Knight lets him know that he just wants to have a friendly conversation. Now, for Moon Knight, that may include some torture, a little bit of scare tactics, but really he's just trying to get as much information out of him as he possibly can. Because up to this point, he doesn't think that this is a new villain. This Zodiac has to be someone he knows, someone taking on a whole new persona, because he was too good. He was too confident. When someone first decides to put that mask on and hurt somebody, it takes some time to find your footing. And for Zodiac, there was none of that. It was immediately jumping into the fire. And everything so far, it has all been tests, games to be played, saying that Moon Knight has potential. Not really sure what the prize of these games will be, but Moon Knight has every intention of finding out. And after 8-Ball finally spills his guts, that leads him to Marsdale, Manslaughter Marsdale. 8-Ball had been playing poker with them a couple months back, and had told him about him crewing up with a guy named Zodiac a long time ago. And so with setting 8-Ball free and now having a direction of where their next clue is, they head for Manslaughter. But that is not going to go over as smoothly as it did with 8-Ball. With Moon Knight now in the fight with Manslaughter, Manslaughter is letting him know that there is no way he is giving up information. There is no way he is going to be a rat. And they will sit here and they will scrap all day long if that's what it takes. Because Manslaughter is an individual who cannot feel pain. But that is not stopping Moon Knight from laying down some hate on him, telling him you better start giving me information before I start giving you cuts all over your body. Because you may not feel pain, but you will still bleed out. But for Manslaughter, this isn't a matter of just giving someone up. He owes Zodiac his life. And because of that, he would rather die or go to jail than give up that information. And with Moon Knight charging up and just knocking him for a loop, we see Manslaughter feel legitimate pain, because on the outside of his body, he may not feel pain, but a concussion, that is something he can feel. Letting him know, you better give me something. You better give me a name, anything, before I give you another concussion. Saying that he's no punk like Clown, or any of the other members of the crew, that no matter what you do, I will never give you what you want. With Moon Knight saying that he believes him and leaves him there bleeding on the ground. Because Moon Knight got exactly what he wanted. He got a name, that name being Clown. And if Manslaughter isn't going to give him the information, he's going to go for someone who Manslaughter considers a punk that could give up the information. But with them kicking down the door and going into Clown's place, this is where they find nothing but his body, with Clown being beheaded, his head completely missing. They were already too late. Zodiac had already struck. Now this is where we pick back up with Greer on a phone call with the individual who is keeping tabs on Moon Knight, really just giving a sit-rep of everything that has transpired up to this point. And with that individual apologizing and being revealed that this is in fact Black Panther. This is the Avengers keeping tabs on Moon Knight, saying that he is simply too dangerous to be left unwatched. And as we close out this issue, we are picking up with the therapist making her way to her office. And in her office, this is where she is met by Zodiac. And Zodiac lets her know that he is here for conversation, that you could call this an intervention for Moon Knight, an opportunity for them to put their heads together and get Mark back on track. And he says this all while holding the head of Clown. Alright gang, so as we dive into issue number 8, we are picking up with Dr. Moon. Dr. Moon being Hunter's Moon, the brother, the other fist of Khonshu. And in the last issue, it really gave us a huge character arc for him, because while he came here to make his brother pay, to remind his brother of the god they serve, he found that Moon Knight was protecting vampires. Hunter's Moon not able to understand why this is. That is, until Reese had come to him in some kind of attempt to save Moon Knight's life. And so because of this, he really has started to rethink everything that he knows. Because for as long as he can remember, killing vampires, killing those that would hurt others in the night, that has been their whole goal. But now having a change of heart and helping his brother out at the mission, and he's doing this not just because he wants to help his brother out, he really wants to figure out what it is that Moon Knight has found here that makes him want to continue doing this work. And this is the perfect opportunity for that to happen. With Moon Knight getting blindsided by the Thunderbolts, he gets taken down and he gets thrown in jail. But regardless, the work, it must go on. And today's work, there is a symbol and there are people that are littered with crossbow bolts. And this is said to be the work of Stained Glass Charlotte. Charlotte being an individual that was married to a gangster. She gets married, has a child. That child ends up following the same footsteps. Both of them reaching death. The father being taken out by the police. And the son was killed by his own mother. After that, she kind of went into vigilantism and then dabbled in some terrorism. But the issue right now is there are dead bodies lying around the city and her symbol is painted all over the place. And the other issue is that Stained Glass Charlotte, she is thought to be dead for at least 2 years at this point. And so the question may be, they maybe have a copycat or they have something else going on. And it wasn't hard for people to believe that she had died, because she had no real training, she had no powers. She was really just a crazy lady with a crossbow. And so with Hunter's Moon going to investigate where all of this is coming from, it leads him to an old abandoned building. A building that just so happens to be littered with her symbol. Now for Moon Knight, he had a really complicated relationship when it came to Scarlet. And so when Hunter's Moon arrives on site, she believes at first that it is in fact Moon Knight. But he quickly informs her that he is not the same, asking where she is, asking for her to show her face. She says that she is everywhere. Everywhere that her mark is, that is where she is. And Hunter's Moon is letting her know that he is not afraid of her, because he is the fist of Khonshu and there is nothing that he fears. And we see him fall. The floor gives out underneath his feet and he goes tumbling down to the ground. And this is where he gets a story. This is where we begin to understand the Stained Glass Scarlet. It's a story of a girl who wanted to be a nun, or maybe even an actress. She had tried the former, but realized that she was the latter. A wife to a monster. The mother to another. A killer shot down in the same church where her husband and son had died in gunfire decades apart. And after that day, she became more of a legend. And with those words have power. because it is with words that we make stories. And though she did die those 2 years ago, when she died, the stained glass Scarlet was truly born. She was born of words of fear, blood, and retribution. Because what people would do is they would draw her symbol and then they would pray to her. And in their prayers, they would ask for someone to be killed, to take care of someone that they didn't want to do themselves. And so, the glass-stained Scarlet, she became mythology. She became a story that could kill. And with every time her story is getting told, she grows stronger. These prayers, these wishes, they give her life, and she gives them vengeance. And at this point, we have Hunter's Moon. He begins taking some crossbow bolts, getting one of them in his side. He asks her the question that if you seek out vengeance, why are you attacking me? What have I done, and what is this punishment for? And she tells Hunter's Moon that she can see into his heart, that he is one to lift his blade and stakes against those who are innocent. And though no one asked specifically for his death, in this place, in this church that she has created, she has the will to do anything she chooses. This is the place that she was born, and so she needs no permission to enact her vengeance. And as the walls begin to close in on Hunter's Moon, he lets her know that he did in fact try to kill those vampires. He didn't recognize who they were. He was blinded by his own hatred, not recognizing that they are brave and wholesome individuals even though they were turned into vampires. He wasn't seeking vengeance for those he helped. He wasn't seeking vengeance for his god. He knows that this was a selfish endeavor, and though he may be the Fist of Khonshu, he is also just a person, and people are able to change. And so if people can change, why can a story not as well? And she lets Hunter's Moon know that you can't kill a story, especially with fists and blades. And so more just to summarize what's happening here is Stained Glass Scarlet. She is in fact a god. She may be a very young god, but she is turned into a god because of the prayers, because of the people asking for vengeance. This has given her power. That mythology has come to reality. The only issue is, her story is very young. This god is nothing but a youngling. And in comparison to the one and only Khonshu, this god is nothing. And this is where we see Hunter's Moon. He summons his god. He summons his father. We see Khonshu come onto the scene. And at first, the Scarlet, she is very confused on what is happening here, with Hunter's Moon enlightening her that this is the Embracer, the healer, the Pathfinder, the defender of those who travel at night. And our young godling tries letting the Moon God know that you have no power here. And while the Moon God, he may be unjustly imprisoned, when he is summoned by one of his children, he has a small amount of power. And even his small amount of power in comparison to this young godling is such a greater power. Because the truth of the matter is that she has only been getting prayed to, worshipped, and people coming to her out of desperation for a couple of years. Khonshu, on the other hand, he has been playing this game for thousands of years. And this is where he starts to give her some lessons. Though the Scarlet wants to kill him, neither of them can die. What they can do is wage war on one another. They can reduce one another in power, and they can be banished. If only for a time, they can be hurt. And so, with our Moon God now banishing the Scarlet, we pick up with Reese and Hunter's Moon later on that evening. And Hunter's Moon, he's really just giving Reese a recap of everything that just transpired. Because the truth is, he really didn't have to do anything. And it's not like he could have done anything even if he wanted to. He had to summon an ancient god to take down a young god. It's definitely not your average day alley beat up. But this makes him come back to Reese and tell her that he is sorry, that he has never gotten to it just yet, but he is apologizing for trying to kill her. And for Reese, it's something that she's not really necessarily ready to forgive. Though she tells him that it is okay, you can still tell that there is a lot of contentment behind her eyes. And as for the glass-stained Scarlet, well, she is not able to be killed as long as there is someone out there worshipping her, praying to her name. As long as there are people asking for vengeance, her power will begin to grow again, and it will be only a matter of time before we have her return. And this is when we are shown an epilogue of Ravencroft. And right now, 2 guards are putting everyone on alert. And that is because these 2 guards have just realized that the Hydra/terrorist known as Winter Rutherford, he has escaped from Ravencroft. Alright gang, so as we dive into this issue, we are picking up with 8-Ball. And 8-Ball, he's trying to figure out why he never got picked for the Thunderbolts. With Wilson Fisk out here picking all of these individuals, 8-Ball says that he's taken on the likes of Spider-Man, Moon Knight, She-Hulk, Sleepwalker. He's gone toe-to-toe with all of them. And while he would love to be on the Thunderbolts team, being in here might be a little bit of a vacation for him. Keep him out of trouble while all of the chaos is breaking out on the streets. Asking his new cellmate who he is and what brought him here. He says that it has to do with the mask laws. Asking what his name was out on the street, he lets him know that his name was Moon Knight. Picking up a little bit later, everyone in the cafeteria, we see that 8-Ball, he's more or less shunned by everybody. None of the villains want really to sit with him or anything to do with him. They all brush him off. They all make him go sit by himself. 8-Ball more or less is being the joke around here, with Captain Confusion coming up to him and trying to start some beef, trying to take his food and bully him around. From behind him, this is where we see Moon Knight grabbing his hand and letting him know that he better leave his cellmate alone. Captain Confusion asking who he is supposed to be. Moon Knight lets him know he is the one that put that moon scar on his forehead. As soon as he hears this, he goes running in the opposite direction, with Moon Knight sitting down with 8-Ball. 8-Ball has to ask, why aren't you sitting with all of the other superhero types that have found themselves locked up in here? Letting him know that they might have all got pinched for the same reason when the Thunderbolts came in and they swept everybody up. But he is no more welcome with them than 8-Ball would be with all of the villains. The truth is, he is the outcast. Moon Knight really only has one question for 8-Ball, asking him, where is Man Mountain Marco? And Marco, he gets special privileges. The guards let him eat alone and with real food, not this cafeteria prison food that everyone else gets. Because Marco is the king in the cage, with the guards having their own little brawls, their own UFC fights, their own Thunderdome inside the prison. Marco is the king, currently the reigning champ. He doesn't have to mix with the population. He gets his own isolation and solitude. With Moon Knight learning this information, he gets up, he walks over to Captain Confusion, grabbing his head and smashing it into the table, trying to stir up some trouble, telling him that they should meet up sometime. A bunch of first-class losers, and that is all they will ever be. Taking us a little bit later, 8-Ball has to ask the question, what the heck were you thinking? Why did you start all of that beef? Moon Knight says he's just trying to make friends, with one of the guards coming up, grabbing him, and bringing him into the showers. And as soon as he makes his arrival, this is where Captain Confusion and his crew, they are waiting for him. In a matter of moments, we see Moon Knight come out of the showers covered in blood, and every single one of those goons, they have been taken down. The guard in complete disbelief. Moon Knight asks him one question: where is the real fighting? I hear that you guys have a fighting match going on, and I would like to throw my hat into the ring. Moon Knight wants a shot at the title, and that's what takes us to our first bout. Moon Knight versus Boomslang. His only request for doing these fights is that he wants a mask. Giving him his face, he puts on the mask, and he brutally beats the crap of every single one of these competitors. From Mr. Fish to Killer Shriek and Cactus, Massacre, he is making his way up the title. He is finding his way to the man mount known as Marco. And Marco comes to taunt him, tries to let him know that he is no match for him. That if he is coming for his title, if he wants to be the reigning champ, then he is gonna have to come with whatever he has. Whatever is much bigger and better than what you have been bringing currently. And of course, Moon Knight, he is not intimidated in the slightest. He's not worried about Marco, but this is the match. Bout 7, this is the title match. This is what it was all for. As he begins to walk into the ring, letting him know the first man to ever kill him was Raoul Bushman, and he was a ruthless war criminal. The real deal, 1,000 of corpses to his name. And in comparison to Marco, Marco is nothing more than a 2-bit street corner thug. With the fight getting underway, Marco goes to throw the first punch, and Moon Knight countering him every step of the way. He is making the Man Mountain bleed, because this is not where Moon Knight dies. In this arena, in this cage, this is where he lives. This is where he works. This is a holy place dedicated to violence, consecrated with blood. This is his temple. With Marco just getting his butt handed to him, he tells Moon Knight that he is freaking insane. This guy is an absolute sociopath. But this is when we cut to the past. With Moon Knight taking a huge hit from Marco, we find out why Moon Knight is actually in prison. A young woman had come to him. A young woman by the name of Judith Court. She used to be married to Marco. Now her ex-husband. They have a child together. With Marco leaving after the child had been born, never seeing her again. Now being 12 years old, her powers have manifested. Her powers exactly like her father's. Because of this, Marco, using his influence, is trying to do whatever he can to take that child from her. With Judith concerned that her life is going to be in danger and that her daughter will be taken after her death, Moon Knight making the promise that they are under his protection. We see Moon Knight in current time. He jumps up, grabs hold of Marco, and he tells him a little secret. The secret being that there is no cop, there is no third-tier supervillain that could imprison him and do anything that he didn't want to do. The truth is, Moon Knight wanted to get arrested. He allowed himself to be arrested so he could come in here and he could find Marco. He came here to teach him a lesson and to also deliver a message. The message is that he will never see his ex-wife or daughter ever again. With Marco making a joke about it, saying that when he does finally catch up with Judith, he is going to ensure that she suffers because of what Moon Knight is doing right now. And in this arena, Moon Knight, he begins to feel like him old self. The old days, the dog days, the wild dog days. Letting Marco know that he was given a choice to remember that, because you're going to regret not listening to what I had to say. Being blood drunk and murder hungry, Moon Knight grabs hold of Marco's face, taking his thumbs and driving them into his eye socket, letting him know that he told him he would never see his ex-wife or daughter again. And he meant that literally. With his hands soaked in blood, the guards, they come rushing in as Marco is screaming in agony, with his eyes being literally plucked out of his face. With Moon Knight charging at the guards, they put him down on the ground and he ends up in solitary. And while he's in solitary, 8-Ball cleaning the floors, having a conversation with him through the door. 8-Ball has to ask the question, you let yourself get pinched. Like, why would you do that? And Moon Knight lets him know that this place, it couldn't hold Captain America, and he's just one guy. And right now, this prison is holding a bunch of heroes, to include Reed Richards. Like, do you really think that this prison can hold them? It is only going to be a matter of time before they make their escape. And so while Moon Knight, he seems pretty confident that they're gonna come and rescue him, 8-Ball has to ask, why are you so confident? Especially after everything that you just did. And plus, you said they kinda don't like you, so why would they rescue you? Moon Knight letting him know that the truth is they don't like him. And they don't have to like him. When they break out of here, they are going up against Wilson Fisk. They are going to try to take this city back. And for a fight like that, you are going to need a wild dog. Alright gang, so as we dive into this issue number 9, we are picking up with Moon Knight being thrown out a window. On the 6th floor of this building, he is getting thrown straight out and onto the ground. But with him getting up and onto his feet, there is a shadow standing up in the window. Moon Knight swearing that he will come back, that he is coming back for whoever that is. And when he does, he will have a way to kill them. Now this mission, it started like any other mission. People going missing, so he had to go find them. And after escaping prison, after all of the dead ends with Zodiac, it felt really nice for him to get back into the action, get back into working and doing the regular thing, helping people out with the mission, so on and so forth. Really, things are just turning back into normal, at least for the time being. And it didn't really require much detective work to find out where these people were going missing from. Every single one of them came from the same place, the 6th floor of an old apartment building. And at first glance, there's really nothing weird about this place. There's been no murders, there's been no cults, no dimensional drifts. But when you look at the building's blueprints, this apartment building only has 5 floors. The 6th floor, it was something different. It was a maze. It was a labyrinth. And this labyrinth was meant to keep people in. Once he made his way onto the 6th floor, he recognized that this is a trap. There was nothing in this place, finding nothing but halls. No water, no food, his body growing weak, nothing but endless corridors. That's when he knew. That's when he understood its purpose. This wasn't just a trap. This wasn't just a maze. This thing was alive. Assuming that this thing, it must have eaten him. Not sure if that's really the case, but he knows it wants something. Being able to catch glimpses of shadows throughout this place, every time he goes to chase them down, these shadows disappear. But when he was weak enough, exhausted enough, stretched to the limits both mentally and physically, that's when it tried to touch his mind. But when it tried to do that, when it tried grabbing hold of Moon Knight, that is when this thing, it began to scream, vomiting Moon Knight out. After he got out, after he escaped, he recognized that he had been stuck in there for 4 days. Of course, his therapist hadn't heard from him, and everyone was a little worried. Even Black Panther had called Tigra to try to figure out where he was. No one hearing from him, and especially knowing the damage that he can do, everyone's really keeping tabs on him. But the therapist, she's not reporting any of this to the Avengers. More than anything, as a professional, she was worried about her client, especially knowing his mental state, knowing everything that he has been through. Him going MIA for 4 days, that could be very dangerous. But she does have to ask one question, a question that he's probably not going to like. The question is, do you really think you can do this? Your midnight mission is gone, your superhero antics, they may have saved some people, but it's also brought more violence into his neighborhood. Should you really be doing this superhero gig? Now, taking us to the home of the Sorcerer Supreme. Now Doctor Strange being dead, Wong is home, and Moon Knight has come here to use their library, going through all of the text. He needs to learn as much as he can about this apartment building, about this thing that is alive on the 6th floor. After doing some research, he comes back with people still inside, people's minds needing saving. This time he knows what he's dealing with. As he makes his way to the 6th floor, he begins to talk to it, letting it know that he knows this thing doesn't like him. It doesn't like what Moon Knight can do to it, the power that he has when it touches his brain. But Moon Knight also knows what this thing is. It is what is known as the House of Shadows, a living structure from beyond space and time. Mixing it up with Doctor Strange on many occasions, Doctor Strange had banished the House of Shadows. But with the death of Doctor Strange, it was given the opportunity to come out, and no one really is the wiser to it being here. But he also tells the House of Shadows, the last time they were here, he swore he would find a way to kill this building. And this time, he has brought an entire duffel bag full of explosives. And while he really does want to use these, or at least he could use these, he's beginning to understand the House of Shadows more, because they are similar in a lot of ways. Each of them, they keep returning, time and time again. He had thought at first that this thing, that it was a maze, but this is a house. And houses, they want one specific thing. They want to be lived in. That's why this house, this place, keeps bringing people in. It keeps touching their minds and keeping them here. The House of Shadows, it needs people to live inside of it. Many people, they're not doing this willingly because it's weird, it's alien, it's unwelcoming. The house really doesn't fit in. The House of Shadows is unwanted. And this is something that Moon Knight, more than anybody, can truly understand. And so he comes with an offer. Let all of the people go and come with him. And him, everybody that he knows, they will keep coming back. They will give the House of Shadows a purpose. And he can offer the same thing that keeps Moon Knight going, a mission. Picking us up a little bit later outside the destruction of the old Moon Knight mission, the others really not sure why they're even here to begin with. Moon Knight has something to show them, and as they stand here looking at the wreckage, in an instant we see this building change. Completely restored, this is the House of Shadows. This is the brand new Midnight mission. Alright gang, so as we pick up with issue number 10, we have Moon Knight sitting down with his doctor. And what he is letting her know is that just recently he met up with one of her other patients, the individual known as Rutherford Winter. He came into the mission with a gun. The therapist telling him that Winter is a very dangerous individual. Of course, Moon Knight, he's gathered that up to this point. But it's more than that. He is a very broken man. Hydra had destroyed his mind. They turned him into a living weapon, going as far as saying that Nick Fury has referred to him as a homicidal, artificial personality trapped in a delusional narrative. The question is, can he be saved? The therapist, she doesn't seem to think so, saying that he is a wild dog and the only thing you can do is contain an individual like him, that there is no saving him. But with Winter coming into the mission wielding this gun, Moon Knight lets him know that he has already made very many bad mistakes. As they make their introductions, Moon Knight wastes no time descending down on top of him, knocking the gun out of his hand. The two of them begin to fight. And in the midst of all of this chaos, Winter is telling him that he wants his doctor back, trying to figure out what Moon Knight did with her. And he's trying to figure out what the heck Winter is even talking about. Because at this point, it's seeming like you are a jealous patient and you're mad that she has other patients. Winter telling Moon Knight that he doesn't understand what is going on, that he is unwell and he wants to get better. And to do so, he requires his doctor, asking him again, what did you do with her? And to be honest, Moon Knight is 100% just confused on what the heck is going on. As he continues his conversation with the therapist, he has to ask the question, do I need containment? And the doctor tells him that no, over the last several months you have made great strides, great improvements. You are actively trying to get better. Dr. Sternman being able to realize that Moon Knight, he's recognizing the comparisons between him and Winter. Just like Hydra made him into a weapon, Moon Knight was made a weapon by Khonshu. But the truth of the matter is that the only one that has confinement on Moon Knight is himself. That he places these barriers around himself, referring back to something that Zodiac had told him, that he could really be something else if he took off these restraints. If he would let himself off the leash, what he could truly be. Proposing the question, what if he was right? Moon Knight telling her that you haven't asked about Winter yet. You didn't ask what I did to him. And though she doesn't necessarily find it important, she assumes that he's been captured. And Moon Knight is starting to pick up some very odd signals. Because previously, the doctor went all in on discrediting him. Before he could say what Winter actually told him, she immediately went on the defensive. And sure, he may have been brainwashed to be a super killer, that he has a stack of bodies trailing behind him. Moon Knight is not any different. The one similarity they do have though is that both of them are attempting to get better. Both of them want to be better versions of themselves. Dr. Sternman trying to tell him that there is no saving this guy. There is no coming back for him. He is a broken weapon with no future whatsoever. Whereas Moon Knight, Mark Spector, you have the opportunity to reform. You have the opportunity to come back from the darkness. Moon Knight at this point, he has finally figured it out. Telling Dr. Sternman that if she is dead, I am going to hurt you beyond comprehension. Wanting her to know this before they begin. that it is going to go very badly for Zodiac. Nothing can stop that at this point. But if the doctor is dead, then you get to live, and you will know nothing but pain for the rest of your existence. And Mark is feeling just a little bit dumb at this point, thinking that he should have clocked this much sooner. But he has been so busy, so preoccupied with everything that's been going on with his own life, to include the events of Devil's Reign. When Winter came to him, Winter believed that Moon Knight was responsible for the doctor, until he realized that he was wrong. That the individual he has been going to therapy with ever since he got out of prison, that is not the doctor. That thing is a monster. Clicking in Moon Knight's head, he heard about 3 women that had been suffocated, their bodies spread across New York, made to look like nothing out of the ordinary, as if these are just typical, regular, everyday suffocations, not something that would try to get the attention of Moon Knight done by Zodiac or someone in his area. It wasn't in his territory, and so he wasn't really focused on what was going on. Dr. Sternman trying to tell him that he needs to calm down, that he is having a psychotic break, but the truth is, this is not the doctor. This is Waxman. With Waxman recognizing that he is being caught, he says that he couldn't help himself killing those 3 girls. Believing that Moon Knight would never be able to catch on, it does not matter to him. Zodiac is not going to be happy about his plan going off the rails. Not happy about Waxman attempting to kill Moon Knight, but he doesn't care. But Moon Knight is not an idiot. He knew exactly what was going to happen. He knew exactly who the doctor was. He came here with some freeze grenades. Unleashing them on Waxman, he is frozen into place. And now it is time for him to get hurt beyond comprehension. This is when we are taken to an apartment building that is being built up in the city right now. The concrete is getting ready to be laid, and Waxman is currently inside of a metal spherical object. All of the seams have been welded together, so Waxman is not able to escape. He will be stuck and imprisoned until Moon Knight decides to let him out. And while he finds this a little bit funny, because Waxman, he doesn't need to eat, he doesn't need to drink, he doesn't even need to breathe. And so he has all the time in the world. Moon Knight informing him that he is going to need all the time in the world, because if you don't give me the information, I am going to pour this concrete and no one will ever find you again. That this apartment will be built, people will live over you, and be completely ignorant to your existence. The only people that will know is the individual standing right here, asking him how long do you think it's going to take before the madness takes over, before you start hearing voices in your head, before you start wishing for death to come to your door. Quickly realizing how bad this situation could turn for him, he lets him know that the doctor is alive, that Zodiac has Dr. Sternman. Handing the radio off to Soldier, he jots down the address that the doctor is at. As Moon Knight walks over to the concrete maker, he moves the slide over the area that is about to be filled with concrete. Releasing the hatch, we see the wet cement come pouring out, as Waxman begs for his life, saying that you can't do that. You cannot leave me here. Moon Knight doesn't care at all. Everybody else is in absolute shock. Moon Knight tells him, "I will see you in hell." He throws down the radio into the concrete, and he tells the others, I know exactly what you're thinking, and that's why Reese isn't here right now. But Waxman, he was a serial killer. He deserved worse than everything he is about to get. And tonight, Moon Knight vows that he is probably going to do much, much worse. Alright gang, so we are picking up in New Jersey. Right now, the doctor is being held. Waxman spilling the information that Jigsaw is the one who captured her. Their main priority, no matter what, is saving the doctor's life. If they can capture Jigsaw, if they can capture the Zodiac, those are just bonus points. As they break into this warehouse, this is where they find Jigsaw having the doctor tied up on a chair, Moon Knight lurking in the shadows, Jigsaw going on this whole little tangent, not realizing this is in fact not Moon Knight. not until it is already too late. Moon Knight had taken off his cloak and he gave it to Tigra. As Moon Knight flanks him, comes up on Jigsaw, and just starts beating the heck out of him. Beating him until his fists are covered in blood and the doctor has to stop him. Through a communication device, this is where we hear Zodiac. Of course, Moon Knight calls him out and lets him know, come out here, fight me so we can end this. Right now, Zodiac is outside the Midnight Mission, but he's not going inside. With this place being rebuilt overnight, he's not really sure what is going on here, but he is not going to risk going inside. His whole purpose for doing all of this was so that he could try and get Reese. Now he has to try and make Reese come outside. When the doctor asks why you are doing all of this, he lets it be known that he is doing this so Moon Knight will finally be Moon Knight again. Because the guy he is being over the last 10 issues that we have seen, this is not the typical Moon Knight. He is more savage, more brutal, more violent. And this pacifist version of Moon Knight that we are seeing, Zodiac knows that this is not him. At his very core, at his very essence, Moon Knight is violence. And what he wants to do is free Moon Knight, allow him to truly see what he should be doing and how he should be doing it. With Moon Knight letting him know that if you go anywhere near that mission, Hunter's Moon is going to be coming for you. Unfortunately, Zodiac is already 5 steps ahead of him. Hunter's Moon has already been taken down. Using the Zodiac cartel, Hunter's Moon was able to take 3 of them down before they were able to capture him. And so what they are going to do is start dragging people out of this neighborhood, out of Moon Knight's neighborhood, and they are going to start executing one by one, hanging up the phone and calling out Reese, saying that if you come out, we will not kill everyone in the neighborhood. We will simply kill you. Of course, this is a lie. He is going to kill everybody regardless. What he wants to do is take everything away from Moon Knight, ensure that he has nothing left. And once he is broken down, once everything is taken away from him, he believes that he will be the Moon Knight he once was. Moon Knight recognizing that he can't get there in time. He has only but one option left: to do something he hasn't done in quite some time, and that is pray to his god. He is going to pray to Khonshu. Dropping down to his knees, he calls out to his father, and though they haven't spoken in a very, very long time, Khonshu appears in front of him, and Moon Knight lets him know that he needs his help. Khonshu reminding him that he is imprisoned in a shining Asgard, all by the hands of Moon Knight. Right now, they don't have time to concern themselves with this. He came to the aid of Hunter's Moon against Stained Glass Charlotte. And right now, that loyal fist, that loyal son, his life is in jeopardy. Unless you help me find a way to get to the Midnight Mission, Hunter's Moon will be killed. Letting him know that there will be a price for this, Moon Knight knows that there always is. And I had misspoke earlier when I said Soldier was by his side. Soldier is currently with Reese. They are trying to figure out what the heck they are going to do. The ones with Moon Knight is Winter and Tigra, and they are getting ready to head back over to the Midnight Mission. Before they head over though, Tigra wants him to know that she has been spying on him. She has been doing this for the Avengers for quite some time. The thing is, Moon Knight has already known about it. There was no way Black Panther was going to have his eyes off of him after the age of Khonshu. So when his best friend arrives from his Avengers days, he realized that this was obviously someone sent to spy on him. The reason he didn't say anything is because he needed a friend. And Tigra always does what she thinks is right. But right now, they are out of time. The path is ready and they have to get going. With the pathway opening up, he lets it be known that they are not welcome here and it is very dangerous. That whatever you do not stop running. As Zodiac counts down and lets it be known that people are gonna start dying, Reese and Soldier have come up with a horrible idea, but the only idea that they can think of. As she steps outside, she doesn't step out alone. And from behind Reese, this is where we see Moon Knight.
Alright gang, we are picking up in front of the Midnight Mission. We have Reese and Soldier, who is currently dressed up as Moon Knight, doing this to stall Zodiac and all of his men, with Soldier ready to take Zodiac on one-on-one. Zodiac is almost tricked into believing this, but Zodiac knows that Moon Knight, he is in Jersey. There is no way that he could have made his way all the way here just yet. And so whatever is going on, he's not buying it. Pulling out the gun from his waist, he starts unloading on Soldier and Reese. Now that's where we pick up with Moon Knight, aka Mark Spector, needing to get to his midnight mission. He called upon his father opening up a passageway for him. This passage leads him through every fist of Khonshu that has ever existed. Him and Tigra running along this bridge. When they look behind them, what we see is all the fists of Khonshu chasing after them. Now Mark Spector, he doesn't really understand what the purpose of this place is. He doesn't understand much of any of this. He does know that they disrupted the eternal resting place of the Fist of Khonshu, of the Fists of Khonshu. And so obviously they are not happy. But he does intend to get more information about this place from Hunter's Moon. Hunter's Moon, who is currently chained up and knocked out on the ground. As we pick back up in front of the mission, we see that Soldier has taken a bullet to the chest. This is because it went right through Reese, and it struck him in the chest. Reese being a vampire, this did not kill her. But Soldier, he was very mortal, always looking for a cause to die for. First it was Hydra, now it is Moon Knight. Zodiac believing he has the upper hand. This is when the crescent moons come in and they strike him in the back of the head and in the back. As he turns to look, this is where he sees the Fist of Khonshu. Not understanding how this is possible. Not understanding how he got all the way from Jersey to here in that amount of time. This completely throws off his plans. But even so, Zodiac still has an army. What could Moon Knight possibly do against these odds? Unlucky for Zodiac, Moon Knight did not come alone. From behind him, we see every single Fist of Khonshu that had woken up. All of the ones that were chasing Moon Knight. They now have an entire army to lay waste to. And this is where the brawl breaks out. As Moon Knight makes his way through this battleground, he is calling to Zodiac. He is calling him out, letting him know that it is time to meet your maker. His only thought, his only plan is to take down Zodiac. Tigra, she's a little bit concerned. The truth of the matter, all of these Fists of Khonshu, they may be helping them right now, but it's only a matter of time before they turn on them. The bloodlust that they have, it is in all directions. This is not a one-sided thing. And so Mark Spector, Tigra, everybody, Reese, they're all in jeopardy of all of these other fists once they are done with Zodiac's forces. As Zodiac runs away trying to make his escape, this is something that he never could have planned for. An army of zombie Moon Knights coming right at him, still having one trick up his sleeve. There is a car bomb set right outside. If he hits this button, it will detonate the entire block. As Moon Knight goes in to stop him, Reese is able to catch up to him first. With our vampire being able to catch up to him, she is able to stop him before he hits that button, throwing him across the street. She is ready to pull out his heart. This is when we cut back over to the fight. With most of Zodiac's men being taken out, we see Hunter's Moon awaken, and he is woken up just in the nick of time, because he knows exactly how to handle all of these other Moon Knights. As he begins to speak in high temple speech of Khonshu, he drops to his knees and he lets them know that they are all honored. The sacrifices that they have made for their father, the things that they have done in the past, in the present, and what they will do in the future. And that one day he will join them in the temple. But for now, he has a mission to fulfill the Fist of Khonshu, being able to calm all of them down and return them to their eternal resting place. We pick back up with Moon Knight, Reese, and Zodiac. And Moon Knight has come to let Reese know, you cannot kill him. Because the truth truth is, this would do something to you. It wouldn't make you just as bad as him. It would make you just as bad as Moon Knight. This is when Moon Knight walks over to him and he begins choking him, waiting for the life to slowly go out of him. But this is when there is a twitch in his eye. Something is happening as Moon Knight says that he needs to finish this, letting go of Zodiac, letting Mark know that if you kill him right here in front of her, you will lose Reese forever. Not willing to let that happen, we see the personality of Stephen Grant emerge to the surface and make his introductions. Alright gang, so as we get into issue number 13, we are picking up with a man known as the Tutor. And he is having a meeting with Taskmaster. And the Tutor, he has hired him for some consulting work. Now Taskmaster, he's usually not one to do consulting work. He's actually quite surprised that he doesn't get called up more. The truth is, Taskmaster, he has been around for a long time. And he has fought against a lot of heroes. But today, the discussion is Moon Knight. Letting the Tutor know that the short answer to all of this is simply don't. Now, the Tutor, he is a vampire. He is not just any vampire. Right now, he is the head vampire in New York City. But Taskmaster is letting him know that Moon Knight, he is on a whole other level. The last time that Taskmaster had been sent after him, he had the full dossier. Moon Knight being United States Marine Corps CIA freelance mercenary. He is at home murdering people in South American jungles and African deserts, just as much as he is in New York City. And what the Marines didn't teach him about violence, the CIA did. Not only that, hooking up with maniacs like Raoul Bushman, this finished his education. He is a blade that has been sharpened on many stones. And this isn't even the reason that he is dangerous. As we get taken over to Moon Knight, Moon Knight currently is hunting down vampires, and he wants the Tutor. He wants the whole structure, trying to figure out where the Tutor's lair is. The vampire that he currently has is unwilling to give him any information, but this vampire does let him know that they know about him, and they also know about the defector that he keeps close to the chest. And they also know that she broke the rules. Moon Knight, recognizing this guy's not gonna give any information, and so he grabs him and he throws him into the sunlight. As this vampire begins to burn to a crisp, we are taken back to Taskmaster and the Tutor. Now the Tutor, he says that this guy, this Moon Knight, he's just a man. I don't understand how he could be more dangerous than you have already made him out to be. The truth is, the Tutor, the vampires, he says that they have transcended humanity, that they are a better breed, and the Moon Knight, he has no superpowers. So how could he actually be a threat to any of us? This is when the Taskmaster lets him know that Moon Knight, he is a bullet. When you put a bullet through a person, it comes out the other side, turned inside out, mushroomed, torn up, twisted from all of the soft tissue trauma it caused. That's Moon Knight. It also cuts over and shows us Moon Knight saving a bunch of individuals. Taskmaster continuing on, letting it be known that he'll come at you faster than the speed of sound, go right through you, and won't care two craps about it. Taskmaster unsure of who took a man and made him into that bullet. And to be honest, he doesn't want to know. But nonetheless, the Tutor has a problem, and that problem is Moon Knight. Killing vampires. This isn't necessarily the problem. He can always make more vampires. The problem is that Moon Knight has defectors with him. 4 vampires. Ones that had been taken from the Tutor. But one of them challenged his exclusivity. That challenge was Reese. taking us over to Moon Knight sitting down with his therapist. There has been a lot going on, and there is a lot to talk about. From the therapist being kidnapped, to them taking down Zodiac, and Stephen Grant showing his face. Which is a big deal, because all of his other personas, they have been laying dormant for the last 12 issues. And so while they have their discussion, we are taken over to the Midnight Mission, having Tigra and Reese both sitting down, and Reese is trying to figure out who the freak Stephen Grant is. Because at this point, Moon Knight has not told her anything, and Tigra is not interested in being the one to let her know exactly what is going on with Mark, avoiding the question and avoiding the topic altogether. This is where we see Soldier step into the room, but Soldier, he is now a vampire. Reese just recently turned him into a vampire after Zodiac had gunned him down. This is the problem that the Tutor has, saying that no vampires are created in this city outside of his sphere of influence. But with Moon Knight really making more vampires, this is a challenge to his rule. And so this is where he offers Taskmaster a crap ton of money to go and take down Moon Knight. And Taskmaster, he lets him know that that's not happening. Taskmaster was paid to talk, but it doesn't seem that the Tutor is listening. The Tutor asking if he's scared, and of course Taskmaster is scared. But it's not just him. Taskmaster telling him, you want to go after Spider-Man? You want to go after Daredevil? That might be something I am willing to do. I might be willing to throw my hat into that fight. Like, he has made a career after taking on Captain America. But Moon Knight, he crashed a freaking helicopter into a building just to get to Taskmaster. And so Taskmaster, he lets him know, I'm good on that. I don't need to live through my own personal 9/11 ever again. And he also lets him know, good luck finding anybody in this city that will be willing to go after Moon Knight. No matter how much money you throw at this, nobody in this city is going to be dumb enough to do that. And that's what takes us to a little bit later, with Moon Knight making his way through all of these vampires. This is when he runs into Taskmaster. And this is more of a professional courtesy. He didn't come here to fight. He came here to let him know that the Tutor, he is out here trying to hire people to take him down. And so whatever happens next, Taskmaster wants Moon Knight to know he has nothing to do with this. He is telling him this because he is terrified of Moon Knight. Telling him he just wanted to let him know out of nothing more than professional courtesy, with Moon Knight saying that they are nothing alike. Taskmaster says he is right, they're not anything alike. They may have both been mercenaries at one point in time, but what Moon Knight is now is far worse. And that's what takes us over to the Tutor. And we have Newman and Grand Mal, the two individuals that have taken the Tutor up on his offer to kill Moon Knight. As they plot the destruction and demise of Moon Knight, we pick up at the Midnight Mission, Reese trying to get any information from Moon Knight about who Stephen Grant actually is, letting her know that it will be another time they talk about this, because right now he is getting this much closer to the Tutor and his layer of vampires, not having the energy to dive into his multiple personalities. When she leaves the room, he lets the others know that it is time that they all have a talk. The others being his other personalities. And that will be the end of this issue. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I'm not gonna lie, this is probably my favorite issue so far. Taskmaster coming out and just letting it be known, I am absolutely terrified of Moon Knight. It doesn't matter how much money you give me, I am not doing this. And if Moon Knight were to find out I even had this conversation with you, he might come after me. So I'm gonna go let him know that the Tutor is trying to hire somebody to take you out. That is how much fear Moon Knight strikes in those that fear him. Alright guys, so as we get into issue number 14, the very last issue on the last page. We saw Mark letting the guys know it is time to have a conversation. That conversation, it begins letting Steven know that Mark does not like when he interferes with his business. The three of them had made an agreement, and for a while, this agreement, it really stood. Not everybody was happy, but everybody made the compromise. Jake and Steven, they took a step back, letting Mark have the reins. The only issue is he was about to cross the line. Even Jake telling him that he was out of control. And it's not that he wouldn't put Zodiac into the ground himself. The problem is that they were about to do it in front of Reese. Continuing on, Steven lets it be known that this agreement wasn't necessarily a joint agreement. While everyone was okay with it, Mark Spector is the one that made this agreement to begin with. At one point in time, they had all been in a good place. All three of them. They had been working as one unit, even putting Khonshu in his place for a little bit of time. They took down the Sun King. And so the question has to be asked, what happened? Before I go any further, I need to let you guys know that throughout this story, we are also seeing Mark Spector, Moon Knight, making his way through the city at nighttime. It seems that he is tracking somebody. We don't really know who this person is or what they are. This holds significance because it's gonna show that Mark Spector, while having this conversation in his head with his personalities, also trying to stalk this individual and take them down. It's gonna show how out of sync he truly is. But getting back to the conversation between the three personalities, Mark lets them know what happened to them was the age of Khonshu. They freaking took out the Avengers. They took over the world for an insane moon god. Mark was recognizing that Moon Knight, the perceptive that everyone had of him, was that he couldn't be counted on, that he couldn't be relied on because he was crazy. And because of that, he lost everybody important in his life, believing that he had to take charge for the good of all the personalities. On top of that, the Avengers are watching them. Black Panther has been keeping tabs on him. Their condition is a liability. And this is when Stephen Grant, he proposes the idea that maybe it's not the condition that is the problem. If you look at the state of your life, the problems that you have, and all the things that you have done, has any of this ever stemmed from your condition? How has DID caused all of these problems in your life? Because it wasn't the condition that cut off Bushman's face. It wasn't Jake who put down the Avengers. The truth is, DID has never been the source of his problems. That Steven and Jake, they have always been there. They have always been there to help him, and nothing more. The person that is constantly burning down his life, it is Mark himself. Now, Mark definitely doesn't want to hear this. And while Steven, he's not happy saying this, Mark has been so concerned with keeping his condition under control so that he can look respectable to all the other heroes. He is completely eluding the fact that his condition has never been the problem. Not only that, but he has been treating his therapy as something to keep them in check, never noticing that the real goals with this therapist might be to keep him in line, trying to deny this, trying to believe that he has everything under control. The conversation continuing on. Moon Knight still having his battle up on that rooftop. The only problem right now, he is split. Having this conversation is splitting his consciousness. It is splitting his attention. More than anything, Mark Spector, he just wants to be normal. That all these people, the Midnight Mission, everyone he has brought in, they are all counting on him. And when you have individuals like the Punisher who are calling you crazy, he truly believes that you need to get yourself in check, believing that he had to be the one at the helm to keep control of not only his life, but of himself. This is when Steven gets a little bit hostile with him, letting him know that you're not doing that great of a job. All the money that I made you, you have lost. All the friends that Jake has earned you, you have lost. Trying to say that he can make his own money and he never wanted to be loved. Of course, he doesn't believe this himself. And Jake lets him know that you can lie to him, you can lie to me, you can lie to yourself. But at the end of the day, we know you because we are you. You can lie to everybody in the world, but that doesn't mean we don't know what you really are. That doesn't mean that we don't know that you are lying through your teeth when you say you don't want to be loved. While Jake is getting super real with him. Up on the rooftop, he has taken down one of these guys, but this is when a female villain comes in from behind him, not knowing who she is either. We see Moon Knight getting caught off guard. Because of this conversation, Moon Knight gets put down on the ground very quickly. Though this fight is far from over, the conversation continues. Steven and Jake letting him know that he is afraid. He is afraid to be called crazy. He is afraid that everyone that he now has with him is going to leave him. That if he tells Reese and the others about his DID, then they will think that he is nothing more than a psychopath and they will leave him like everybody else. And while he believes that she does need him, he also knows that he needs her, that she is good for him. All of his other friends, they're either ex-Hydra agents or superheroes. He needs somebody that is normal, that is grounded, and while she may be a vampire, she is the only person that he knows that he could consider halfway normal. She is an individual that he strives to be like. And Moon Knight, Mark Spector, he has two different thoughts on this. Now maybe this would scare her off, but what if it didn't? You have Stephen Grant, sophisticated, charming. You have Jake Locke, both versions of Mark Spector who people like. Who would possibly want Mark around when you have other personalities that people much rather prefer? Up on that rooftop, we have Mark Spector who has defeated this other individual, not realizing from behind him the other person has returned. Too busy having these conversations, letting them know that he doesn't need either of them, that he can do this alone. Steven then asking the question, if you can do this alone, why are you losing this fight? Steven telling him that if you want to be like Reese, you need to understand that she doesn't ignore her vampirism. She doesn't think that it has some kind of cure. She simply lives with it. The truth is, Moon Knight is not just you. All three of us are Moon Knight. This conversation continuing, and Moon Knight is just getting wrecked by both of these guys. Too divided in his mind to accurately do what he needs to do to be able to fight off these two individuals. This is when he recognizes that he can't, that he was wrong, being beaten to a freaking pulp. Hunter's Moon and Tigra arrive. This is the only thing that saves Moon Knight. And now he recognizes that he was afraid of the things that he has done, afraid of who he was. He thought he had to make a new version of himself. But he recognizes that both of them are now right. If they are gonna fix things, they are gonna have to work together. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Comic Breakdown. In this video, we are jumping into Moon Knight issue number 15. What we have seen over the last couple of issues, Mark has had a meeting with his alters, Stephen Grant and Jake Locke. They agreed to work together to achieve their goals. His current goal is dismantling the structure, the group responsible for turning Reese into a vampire. In retaliation, the man known as the Tutor, leader of the structure, he sent the assassins Grand Mal and the Nemean Lion, almost being killed in this battle. The assassins fleeing only after Tigra and Hunter's Moon had intervened. This is the aftermath. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, make sure you like this video, and with that being said, let's dive into this breakdown. Alright gang, so as we dive into issue number 15, we have Moon Knight who is sitting down with his therapist. They are currently talking about his DID. Because Jake and Steven, they both found it very odd that his therapist has been avoiding the conversation of his DID. And now that Mark truly thinks about it, this is something that his therapist has said time and time again, that they're not trying to talk about his DID. She says it is because of triage. Her job is to help him, and in her opinion, they have made a great deal of progress. But he also knows that he was brought here on a very firm recommendation from the Avengers after the Age of Khonshu. As part of that, it is her job to evaluate what level of danger he may pose. to see if he has another world takeover inside of him. And so she needed to focus on their work on the part of him that potentially presented the greatest threat. That wasn't anybody else except for Mark Spector. And while she doesn't necessarily believe him to be a threat after all the time that they have spent together, but she does change the subject up and she asked him to talk about his breakthrough. And while it has taken him some kind of adjustment, Mark, Steven, and Grant, they are now working together to take down the structure. This has definitely taken some adjustment. He has grown used to not sharing, not having to deal with anybody but himself. It's all about control. Control of the body, control of the life. Everything that he has built up, he is concerned that his other personalities, they might not live up to this. And so for him, it was very difficult to let go. But each of them have their role to play. Steven Grant taking over and letting Mark know that you have let yourself go. Going in, getting a haircut, getting a little bit of pampering, just making himself look a little more appealing. But Mark was convinced that he was wrong in keeping them away. Just like that. Even the therapist, she's a little bit surprised by this. Surprised that he was so easily swayed into giving up control. But he informs her that he is an unreasonable individual. That's what he is used for. He is the one that does all the fighting, the one who takes all the punches, the one who spits out the blood and teeth. They gather the intel, they get the information. Steven from the houses of the rich and powerful, and Jake, he's kind of more of the street level, the scum, the underbelly of the entire city. But each of them have their role to play. Jake getting his information from a local bar that he always goes to, trying to learn as much information about the structure as they possibly can, to see who is responsible, to see where they might be hiding out, and see if there is a bigger name attached to everything going on besides the tutor. Not only that, they are also looking for the assassins that almost killed Moon Knight. Because the truth is, you cannot go to war without good intelligence. That is exactly what happened with Zodiac. He was punching his shadows, hoping that he would hit something, but Zodiac was always one step ahead of him. When it comes to the structure, these two super killers that the tutor sent after him, they knew what he could do, and he didn't know what they were capable of. While Mark Spector, he may be the fist. He needs to know who and how to punch, where to punch them. He needs his eyes and ears. That is where Steven and Jake really come into play. But as they do their investigation, they have come to learn that there is a big vampire outfit in the city. The word has gone out. It is Ben Franklin time. It is time to join, or it is time to die. Trying to figure out as much as they can from Naomi, the bartender. They also learn more about Lion and Mole, the two assassins that had been sent after them. Only having a little bit of footage on Lion, only having a little bit of understanding of who Grand Mole is. Pretty much all his contacts are letting him know that these are people you don't want to get in a fight with. You don't want to mess around with them. If these guys are in whatever is going on, you should probably stay out of it. But as they learn more and more, they learned that the structure, they have been staying out of Chinatown. Vampires being very territorial. So if they are making a play in New York City, his territory except for Chinatown, that means Chinatown, this is somebody else's territory. Somebody that even the tutor is afraid of. And so of course, this is someone that Moon Knight would like to make friends with. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. This is when he hits Big Claude, getting taken by surprise. Jake is taking one heck of a beating. Now, with Jake and Steven both out here doing all this investigating, that doesn't mean that there isn't time for Mark Spector. Because when it is time to lay down some hate, when it is time to throw blows, that is when Mark shines. When it comes to everybody else in his life. Say, for example, Soldier. Soldier doesn't really have any questions about his DID. In fact, Soldier, he is dead set on spending his life more or less protecting Moon Knight, doing whatever Moon Knight says. He has pledged a blood oath to him, and this is something that Soldier will not give up, regardless of him now being a vampire. Hunter's Moon, Hunter's Moon, in fact, has no problem with this, saying that him having DID, this is more resembling Khonshu himself, because Khonshu, he takes on many different faces. Hunter's Moon's problem is that he went to Chinatown, hat in hand, seeking some kind of alliance against his enemy, believing that this is blasphemy. While Reese and her friends, they are relatively innocent vampires. The one in Chinatown, no vampire gains this kind of power without becoming a monster. The Fist of Khonshu kills monsters. So if you're trying to make a deal with one, you are going against your god. Now, when it comes to Reese and the DID, she doesn't really have any issue with it. If anything, she just wanted to understand what is going on after she had met Steven. And so while Moon Knight, he really did try to hide all of this. He was more ashamed of his DID, what other people would think of him. The truth is, at the end of the day, all the people he has surrounded himself with, all the people that are currently close in his life, they don't care about his DID. If anything, they just wanted him to be honest with him, because none of these people believe that he has something to prove, at least not to them. Mark Spector, Moon Knight, Jake, Steven, they may have something to prove to the world, but when it comes to his circle, his inner circle, these people already have his back. So his DID, it means absolutely nothing to them. Alright guys, so as we dive into this one, we are picking up with Moon Knight, Reese, and Soldier, making their way into Chinatown, not knowing exactly what they're gonna run into. He is not trying to hide that he is here in Chinatown. He wants people to know that he is here. He is trying to get an audience. It doesn't take long for the three to run into a group of vampires, and they are here asking why they have come. The tutor not being dumb enough to send people into Chinatown. They aren't with them. So the question is, who are you? Moon Knight letting them know that he is here on a diplomatic visit. Coming from the Midnight Mission, he would like to talk to whoever has claim over Chinatown. This is where we pick up with Lady Yulan. She is the head honcho in charge. She is the head vampire of Chinatown. Sitting down, having a discussion. Moon Knight is about to try to make a deal with the devil, because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. As they sit down and begin to discuss this, we have Hunter's Moon. Now, Hunter's Moon, him and Moon Knight had a disagreement on how to handle situations, how to handle their current predicament. He wants to go hunt down Grand Mall to find Nemean Lion and have them answer for their transgressions, for jumping Moon Knight on that rooftop. Also, to find out who hired them. As their fight is about to get underway, we have Moon Knight, who is letting her know that he really wants to bring down the tutor, bring down his entire organization known as the Structure. And while there may be no love between us, I was thinking that maybe you wanted to send some flowers to his funeral, because Moon Knight has every intention of killing him. He has only come here for information. He brought his friends along to show what the Structure has done. The question now, why would she help Moon Knight? Maybe she likes the Structure, maybe she likes the way that things are currently set up. This is when Moon Knight lets her know that if that is the case, then you are a coward, and he has wasted both of their time. This is when Lady Yulan grabs him by the neck and has him up on the wall in a matter of seconds. Before the glass even hits the ground, she has him pinned up against the wall, letting us know that she was raised from birth as an assassin in the court of the dread immortal Yi Yang. She is the first of her bloodline, created by alchemy, killing 1,000 men a century before Vlad Dracula was ever even born. And now Moon Knight walks into her territory and tries to call her a coward. Moon Knight telling her that I call it like I see it. Like, sure, you're an ancient monster. You're death on 2 legs. He gets why the tutor would be afraid of her, but he can't understand why she is afraid of the tutor. With Soldier being able to piece it together that it has to do with Yi Yang. She had left Yi Yang's service almost a century ago. She hasn't seen her since, believing that immortality had made her sour, had made her soul just bitter, turning her into nothing more than an insane monster. If she were to move against the tutor would disclose her location, and then Yi Young would come to burn down all of Chinatown, maybe even all of New York City, just to get to her. While we're getting all of this dialogue, we are also watching Hunter's Moon do his battle against the assassins. And Hunter's Moon, he is giving them the business. He is laying down the hate, and they really are no match for him. As we watch that fight unfold and we read the dialogue, we are learning that she is the one that made the tutor. Being born in the back half of the Yuan dynasty, she saw what happened to her old master. She was determined not to let this happen to her. She tries to stay changing with the times. For her, this is the only way that she can stay sane while alienated by immortality. Kenneth, aka the tutor, he was an individual with tons of ideas about progression, about moving forward, about changing society, seeing that vampirism could mean a forward step in evolution rather than a parasitic infection. Now, of course, she believed that all of this was nonsense. When the tutor had come to her, she didn't even entertain this as an idea, with the tutor being one for hierarchies, having that cult thought, pyramid schemes, all of that jazz. He likes control. He likes the power and the respect gained by people bending to his will, and he saw the vampiric condition really as an extension of that. But she is not the one that turned him. He turned himself, taking one of her brides, taking her blood, and bootstrapped himself into being a vampire. He was able to escape the country before he was able to be tracked down, and when he returned a couple years later, he had the beginnings of his structure, and there was an ultimatum now on the table to leave the tutor and his business alone, or Yi Young would be informed of her whereabouts. But what Lady Yulon lets Moon Knight know is that you have posed a threat to him. That is why he is targeting you. That is why he is focusing you. Not because you are trying to kill him, not because you are killing his people. Moon Knight is threatening his exclusivity. Both Reese and Soldier, they were made into new vampires. Regardless of the why, the tutor sees this as a threat. Even if they were turned on accident, Moon Knight is making vampires in New York City. This is a threat to his hierarchy. This is a threat to his power. He believes that the Moon Knight mission is challenging his position as the vampire leader, vampire power in New York City. This is a big deal because he is making a bid for international recognition. As we get a glimpse of the fight currently going on with Hunter's Moon, he finds himself now completely outnumbered. Dozens of vampires come swarming down on him. This was all a trap. The tutor had hired the assassins and brought in the vampires, while Hunter's Moon is laying down the hate. He is overwhelmed. He is outnumbered, and now he is fighting for his life. As we get more information on the tutor, that he is not a man that is content with being the king vampire of New York. He wants the other vampire factions to recognize him. He wants treaties. He wants alliances with all the other vampire nations. And of course, the big one, the vampire nation of Chernobyl. The tutor wants to reach out to Dracula. He wants to take the structure global. If he can infect the other vampire nations with his weirdo cult, then maybe he can challenge Dracula himself. Maybe it'll take 10 years. Maybe it will take a century. Now at this point, Moon Knight has come to understand that she can't interfere. If she does interfere, it will jeopardize everything that she currently has going on. Moon Knight isn't necessarily asking her to do that. He just needs a little bit of help. This is where she lets it be known that they are holding a conclave in Manhattan. He's invited delegations from vampire factions around the world. She knows where it is and she knows when it will take place. She can put them in the same room together. The only catch, he is going to be in a room filled with the world's most dangerous vampires. Of course, he's not necessarily concerned about this because he knows that Hunter's Moon is going to love it. The opportunity to take out the world leader of vampires. What Moon Knight doesn't know is that because of the ambush that Hunter Moon took, he has crowbars, he has knives, he has screwdrivers. They are all sticking out of his body, with him barely holding on to life. Grandma and the others let him know that this is a lesson. This is what happens when you get involved in their business, telling him that they are going to send a message back with him to Moon Knight. But then they decide otherwise. They decide that the message is going to be Hunter Moon's dead body. Grabbing his head, they break his neck. And that will be the end of this issue. So let me know what what you guys think down in the comments. So far, I have not been disappointed with Moon Knight. We are 16 issues in, and every single issue I really am looking forward to. Every single issue has moved the plot forward, has told us more about the story. The introduction to Hunter's Moon, the Midnight Mission being alive, more or less it's haunted. Moon Knight truly is one of the better comics coming out of Marvel right now. It's dark, it's gritty, it's dealing with the criminal underworld, the vampires. You know, the Vampire Nation is one thing I really did want to focus on, especially when Blade was more or less put as the sheriff of Chernobyl. Now, I don't remember if they did anything with that. Let me know down in the comments, did they ever continue on the story of Blade becoming the sheriff of Chernobyl? Was there any expansion into that? Because I don't remember necessarily. Maybe it played out in the Avengers, because I didn't really read the Avengers and I don't keep up with it. But if Blade is out there being the sheriff of Chernobyl in some comics, it's definitely something that I want to read. We gotta think that eventually we are gonna see Blade wind up with the Moon Knight comics. It feels inevitable at this point with how much we have been focusing on vampires. And now we have a vampire that is trying to, more or less, make a play for the throne of King Vampire, if you will. The Tutor is making his moves, trying to get recognized on an international level. Once he has the respect, once he has the label, he can spread the structure throughout the entire nations of vampirism. If he can get enough vampires on his side, he might be able to challenge Dracula. But let me know your thoughts. Let me know your theories. If you would like to get caught up on everything going on with Moon Knight, be sure to check out the link in my description as well as the top of this video. It is gonna get you completely caught up on everything going on with Mark Spector. If you would like to support the channel, you can always do so by joining the channel membership. Much like Patreon, having 5 different tiers, from $1 to $50, from loyalty badges to getting free comics every single month. Not only does this help out the channel tremendously, but you are getting tons of perks in the process. Now, if you are unable to do that, do me a favor, hit that sub button, hit that notification bell, make sure you like this video, and with that being said, until the next breakdown. Alright gang, so as we dive into this issue, we are picking up with Moon Knight and Reese. With Reese letting him know that there is some crazy lady outside with absolutely no manners, and she is trying to get in to see you. With Moon Knight saying to let her in, not knowing who it is. This is Marlene. Marlene has come because something has happened. For those that don't know, Marlene is the mother to Moon Knight's child. They've been in Paris, they have been hiding away, making sure that nobody will come for them, trying to live a normal life as much as possible. But right now, she needs to talk to Mark. Well, Jake really wants to have a discussion with her. There is danger afoot and she needs to speak with him immediately. She needs help in killing someone because someone has kidnapped Moon Knight's daughter. The kidnapper is Jack Russell. The werewolf has his child. That is where we pick up with the werewolves. Right now, they are currently arguing amongst each other. That is because they have Moon Knight's child. They know what this means. That means Moon Knight is coming for them. They know exactly what Moon Knight will do to anybody that crosses him. And now they have kidnapped his kid. And while some of them try to say that they are not scared of Moon Knight, Jack Russell lets them know that they need to be, because Moon Knight is a very dangerous man and they do have his daughter. He is the sheriff to their slave master, Khonshu, the moon god, the one that cursed them to being werewolves. Moon Knight is the boot on their necks, created to oppress them. At least that is what Jack Russell believes. But that is why they are here to do what they are doing. Jack Russell has become king of all wolves. He read from the Darkhold and he kept his sanity. He fought challengers from leadership from all packs in North America. He won the sacred rites at the Conclave. He proved himself in battle. While many of the other werewolves, they don't believe in the prophecy. To him, it does not matter. What he needed was the title of King Werewolf to be able to fulfill the prophecy that he wants to do, being king of all werewolves. This was the most important thing because Jack Russell plans to set all of them free. Picking back up with Moon Knight, he is absolutely losing it, being filled in on everything else that happened. Marlene tells them that they came back just for the funeral of her ex-husband. They were safe in France, but they got ambushed once they found themselves out in the open. Recognizing Russell's voice, telling her to have Moon Knight come find us. Marlene being very harsh, saying that this is all Moon Knight's fault. And so while they prepare to head out and move out, we are picking up with Jack Russell and Moon Knight's daughter. You see, Jack Russell, he needs her to be able to kill Moon Knight. And while she tries to let him know that she needs to be let go, he needs to let her free because her father will come. She doesn't necessarily think that Jack Russell is a bad guy. By the time that they have spent all this time together, she really thinks that he is an okay individual, that he may have done some bad things, but it's not too late for him to turn this around. But for him, there are far worse things than dying. They are slave to a god who has bound their people, cursed with a disease to his service, bound to them by his symbol, to the moon. When the moon is full in the sky, his slaves, they lose control, they lose their minds, and they turn into the berserkers of Khonshu. These are his shock troops in his war of the night. With his fists bearing silver, he keeps them in line. And so what Jack Russell is trying to do is free his people from the burdens of being a werewolf, from no longer being under the thumb of Khonshu. And to be able to do all of this, he needs the daughter of Moon Knight. He needs the daughter of the Fist of Khonshu. This is where Moon Knight, he goes to Hunter's Moon, the other Fist of Khonshu, trying to figure out what Jack Russell might be up to, wondering if it is possible that they could kill Khonshu. This is when he tells him of the prophecy, because Hunter's Moon, unlike Moon Knight, he has all the memories of prior Khonshu fists. But even remembering the prophecy, knowing exactly what it says, he lets it be known that it shouldn't be possible. One of the dictates of Khonshu, a fist is a weapon. A fist cannot reproduce. They reap, they do not sow. It should be impossible for a fist of Khonshu to be able to have a child. Telling him that he probably is going to want to suit up. The two of them head out. Picking back up with our werewolves, Jack Russell is telling Moon Knight's daughter about the prophecy, about the Darkhold. And while she believes that the prophecy is dumb and that you probably shouldn't be following things in some kind of book, he once thought that as well, but he has seen how prophecy works. He dare not tempt fate. He plans to fulfill this prophecy, even being the king of all wolves. Even a king bends the knee to fate. As they prepare for the arrival of Moon Knight, we have Moon Knight and Hunter's Moon making their way directly to their location. Now, Hunter's Moon believes that this should be impossible, that he shouldn't be able to sire any children, that this daughter, she should not exist. But Hunter's Moon has said it himself. There is something wrong with Moon Knight. Some reason Khonshu didn't build him right. He doesn't have a head full of dead fist memories like he does. Regardless of the prophecy, regardless of whatever the case may be, Moon Knight's daughter is in there and he is going to save her, driving the car right through the front freaking door. He sends the werewolves to attack, having a bomb made up of silver spoons and everything you can think of. This silver spoons, these silver utensils, they are used as shrapnel with the explosion. As the fists of Khonshu enter the room, he lets them know that he wants his daughter back and he wants her now. Of course, they're not giving her up easily, so the battle ensues. As the fists of Khonshu lay down some hate, it doesn't take long for them to cut their way through. And while they are going through here, Hunter's Moon lets it be known that your daughter, she is not a priority. In fact, your daughter should not exist. Her life represents a threat to our father's, our God's life. If Moon Knight is killed, that is one part of the prophecy that is fulfilled. This is something that Hunter's Moon cannot allow. But Moon Knight lets him know that if he kills me, it doesn't mean anything. Not if he doesn't have my daughter. You call yourself my brother, then go look for your niece. Go protect her. Go make sure that she is safe. As Hunter's Moon makes his way through this building, that is when the god Khonshu begins to speak to him, letting him know that he knows exactly what he has to do. The girl cannot be allowed to live. And while Hunter's Moon lets the god know that this isn't a just thing to do, he doesn't want to question Khonshu. Kicking down a door, this is where he sees her, believing that maybe this is her dad at first. This is when she recognizes that this is not her father. On another side of the house, this is where we have Jack Russell and we have Moon Knight going at one another. The battle ensues, letting Moon Knight know that he plans to free them from the curse that they never asked for, driven mad by the god Khonshu, all so that they could be his soldiers. policed by his fists with blades of silver. And while Jack Russell, he doesn't want to kill Moon Knight, he will do what he has to do for his people, with Hunter's Moon standing in front of Moon Knight's daughter, Khonshu, telling him to do it, to take that blade and end her life. He decides to do something else, taking her into the other room, letting Jack Russell know that if you kill him, if you kill Moon Knight, the girl dies, because he needs to turn the girl, anoint her with the blood of her father under the planet alignment, and then transfer her the curse. She is the weapon that needs to be forged, making Jack go back to his human form, saying that if this girl dies, there will never be another. She is an aberration. She is something that should not exist, which means if this girl dies, you will never get another chance. He was going to pass the werewolf curse onto her so that she could end it. She could save his people. And while that may make him a monster, the monster Khonshu has made them, made all of them, but she would live. This is when Moon Knight's daughter lets it be known that we need to stop, that nobody needs to kill anybody. Jack Russell didn't hurt her. His prophecy didn't come true. Khonshu is safe. Why can't we all just call it a night? Why can't we all just go in our own directions? That the planets are no longer aligned. What he needed to do, at least for tonight, it can no longer be done. He has run out of time. Khonshu is furious with Hunter's Moon, letting him know that you have ignored my order. I told you to kill her, but Moon Knight says that she is an innocent. In fact, she is your granddaughter, your only granddaughter. Tonight, her bravery does you credit. And Moon Knight, he personally doesn't care. Kill Khonshu, don't kill Khonshu, he doesn't really bother with that. What he cares about is if you come around my daughter again, letting Jack know that if our paths ever cross again, he promises that he will kill him. And that time, his daughter won't be there to save the day. And so they go in their opposite directions, bringing his daughter back to Marlene. Back at the Moon Knight mission, he tells Marlene that you guys could stay here. You could stay here in the Midnight mission and I could protect you. But she knows that his life is Moon Knight. It cannot be separate. He cannot be a father, not in the way that he should be, not in the way that he needs to be. And while she knows that her daughter and her are very much loved by Mark, he can't do what needs to be done, not while he has to worry about them. And for Moon Knight, this is a heavy blow. Usually they aren't on the top of his mind. Usually he is focused on the mission, but he cannot help but feel like a bad father, unable to protect her, unable to have her under the same roof. These are the trials and tribulations of Moon Knight. Alright guys, so this issue is picking us up with Hunter's Moon, with Moon Knight and Tigra finding his body. There is no pulse. There is no breathing. Hunter's Moon has been killed. Moon Knight knows exactly who is responsible. This is all the work of the Tutor, with his big conclave coming up. The vampire nations from around the world. Tutor wanted him off the board. And though Tigra would love to help him in this endeavor, getting the revenge, this is a path that she simply cannot trek. It is one that Moon Knight will not allow her to trek. This is where we see Moon Knight dragging Lion behind his motorcycle, hightailing it down the road. Moon Knight is not dumb. These guys have already beat him before, having assassin tech and superpowers. But the biggest problem is that they are not afraid of Moon Knight. He knows that he is unable to beat them on his own. A 2v1 fight against these two, he knows that he will not come out the victor. The good thing about this is that he doesn't have to, dragging Lion all the way back to the Midnight mission, with Grand Mal following close behind on her motorcycle. They have no idea what they have just stepped in, welcoming the two assassins to the Midnight mission, reintroducing himself, letting them know that his name is Moon Knight, and tonight is the night that they are going to learn why people are afraid of Moon Knight, with Lion letting him know that we killed your sidekick and now we are going to kill you. As the fight ensues between the three of them, Moon Knight lets them know that before, he didn't really understand who they were. He treated them like supervillains. The truth is, these guys aren't villains in that nature. They are hired killers. And so Moon Knight did his research. He knows exactly what they are capable of, and he knows exactly see how he can take them apart. That's when a mist begins to fill up the building, starting with Grand Mall. He knows where she comes from, a place where it is nothing but war and violence, a crucible that really forged her into the person she is today. And while Grand Mall says that someone like Moon Knight, especially an American, could never fully understand what it is to come from there, Moon Knight reminds her that he may be American, but this is not America. This is the Midnight Mission. This is where Maul finds herself absolutely covered in skeletons. The Midnight Mission is recreating a hell of her own making. We have Lion, who is running for his life. Moon Knight letting them know that bullets and blades, these things aren't necessarily meaning anything to you. The truth is, all of that is up there. You are in my world now. Maybe you cannot fight me, but this is not a fight. This is a burial to the people that he protects. The Midnight Mission, it is a place of safety, but for people like these assassins, this is a place of punishment. Eventually, it gets to a point where both of them are screaming, Lion throwing up, on their knees, begging for him to stop. This is Moon Knight's place of power. This is his temple, with Moon Knight sitting upon his throne. He welcomes them here. This is when Lion says that they will give him everything that they were paid to take him out, that they will never have to see them again. But this isn't Moon Knight's decision to make. He killed Hunter's Moon, letting them know that he may have done his research, but they did not do theirs. Hunter's Moon isn't some sidekick. He is the brother of Moon Knight. He is a fist of Khonshu, and the fists of Khonshu, they do not die. That is where we see Hunter's Moon back with the land of the living and ready to deal out some punishment. That is what takes us to the next night. The structure's vampire conclave is in full effect, with Dracula being one of the few individuals that is not here. This conclave is holding some of the most greatest and strongest, most powerful vampires to ever live. As the tutor goes on preaching about the structure, about the hierarchy, about how this is going to change the world, how the structure is expanding across the globe, that is when Maul and Lion, wrapped up in chains, get thrown through the window from the ceiling. Moon Knight entering through the front door, letting them know that this is a present from the Midnight Mission. And since this is a party, it is customary to bring a gift when you go to one. Seeing Moon Knight and Tigra, the two of them are ready to party. Alright gang, so as we dive into this issue, we are picking up with Moon Knight and Tigra finding themselves right in the middle of the festivities. Vampires completely surrounding them. Some of the best, some of the strongest from all over the world, they have all come to hear the tutor talk. He is trying to build up the structure across the globe. Moon Knight, he has come to crash this party, with Moon Knight starting off the dialogue, saying that all the blood that has been spilled between the two of them, all of the beatings, all of the bruising, all of the killing, it is a surprise to Moon Knight that the two of them have not met face to face. Moon Knight had never heard his voice, never seen his face, never looked him in the eyes and told him that he is going to kill him. This is where the tutor, he tries to kind of deflect it, talking to all of the guests behind his podium, saying that this is what he is talking about. This man, this superhero, he represents the old way of thinking. That Moon Knight has sat here and he has tried to fight the structure, and the only thing he has accomplished is nothing. That this is a relic of the past. Moon gods and superheroes, futile statements, and suicidal confrontations. But he believes that the structure, it represents the future. The tutor letting him know that you may have killed my guards, but you have just walked into the Hornet's Nest, a room full of the world's vampire elite. Did you really think that you could walk in here and just walk out? Saying that Moon Knight is going to be raffled off to the highest bidder as a door prize. Moon Knight cutting him off, saying that it was a great speech, that all the vampires here, they have come under the impression that New York is safe for vampires, that represents a territory to be profited from. But they have all forgotten one thing. that New York City, it belongs to Moon Knight. That this territory is his, and he is not going to allow the trespassing of any blood drinkers. That is what takes us to many floors below. We have Reese and we have Soldier. With Soldier, once upon a time being in the ranks of Hydra, he has learned many skills. He is able to break into the security system. He is able to break into the sprinkler system, taking full control over everything that is hooked up to the automated system. We also learn that he is fully dedicated to working for Moon Knight, that he knows he more than likely is going to die in the service of Moon Knight, but this gives his life some kind of purpose. As we jump back up to the main floor, we have Moon Knight telling Soldier to activate it. Moon Knight popping up his umbrella. Soldier activates the sprinkler system. As the water comes pouring down, the tutor runs and he charges at Moon Knight, asking if this was his plan. Was Moon Knight simply trying to make him angry before he ate him, knowing that Taskmaster was an idiot to be afraid of him, going on to call him a superhero? Moon Knight reminds him that he is not a superhero. He is a priest. And this water, the one coming from the sprinkler system, it has been consecrated. He consecrates this water to the service of Khonshu. This water turns into holy water, and we see every vampire in this place begin to burst into flames. Tigra getting her nails done with silver claw caps. This is an absolute bloodbath. With Hunter's Moon throwing down the sword that is silver, we see both fists of Khonshu coming in, and they are getting their revenge. As Moon Knight makes his way to the tutor in all of the chaos, letting him know that he has killed so many of the structure's people, but yet this organization was still able to survive. That is because that is how it was built. He could afford to lose the rank and file. He would simply make more. He needed to find the structure's weakness, and it was there right in front of him the whole time. The truth is, that someone like the tutor, he would never build an organization that could survive when he died. That this all stipulated on the tutor being alive, the tutor being the one to run it all, with the tutor having his last breath, pleading and begging, telling Moon Knight that he will do anything to help the Midnight Mission grow and expand, that he can be useful. But Moon Knight has heard enough of it. Now, Moon Knight had told Tigra to really find somebody, keep them alive so they can get some answers out of them. That is where they find Renfield, working for the vampires. Moon Knight has no intention of killing this guy. In fact, he wants a message sent to Dracula. They are sending the human back to Dracula, and what they are saying is that they are going to let it be known that this is what happens when you make a move on New York. To send him back to Chernobyl and send this as a warning that if Dracula, the vampire nation, if they make any kind of move on New York City, they will face against the fists of Khonshu. That is what takes us to our private prison for superhumans, having Robert Plesko, the psychotherapist in charge of taking care of some of these prisoners. He is sitting down and he is having a conversation with Zodiac. Alright gang, so we are jumping over to the Myrmidon prison. We have Dr. Plesko, who is sitting down having a therapy meeting with Zodiac. They begin talking about whatever is on Zodiac's mind. More specifically, he has been thinking about how America, or at least they say America, doesn't really have that many things going for it. That the art forms, especially when it comes to jazz or comic books, these seem to be the arguments that these are the only American art forms. But it could be argued that Japan beat us to both of these. But he does let it be known that there is something that they do better here in in the old US of A than anybody else, and that is supervillains. Taking us over to Hunter's Moon and Moon Knight. They are currently having a discussion about how the Fist of Khonshu, they can actually die. Now, Moon Knight, for a long time, he has never fully understood the capacity of what the Moon God can do. From his understanding is that they don't die. The Fist of Khonshu, they are always resurrected. Hunter's Moon letting him know that this is true. They do die, time and time again. They do get resurrected. But he does pose the question, if the Fist of Khonshu cannot die, then why are there only two, both men born in the late 20th century? If the Fist of Khonshu can never die, then explain why all of the other fists have in fact died. Taking us back to the Doctor and Zodiac. The Doctor saying that supervillainy, it is not necessarily only an American thing, giving an example of Victor Von Doom. Now this is where Zodiac says that Doom, he's cool. He does his own thing. He does the tortured monarch thing. It's so European, so practiced to him. He wants something that is more elemental. That there is something about America, the broad shriek of straight psychopaths that comes from the American character, saying forget Doom. That he would take Cletus Cassidy over Victor Von Doom any day of the week. Because Carnage, he knows how to party. Picking us back up with Hunter's Moon and Moon Knight. Moon Knight had never actually thought of the aspect about the other Moon Knights. That if they keep coming back, why are there new fists? What happened to all the ancient fists? Hunter's Moon letting us know that there are limitations to resurrection. There always have been. When they are resurrected, their bodies return strong, unharmed, ready to do nighttime violence that is the Moon God's work. But each time they return, it is their minds that suffer. Each time they are brought back to life, they lose a little more of themselves until there is nothing left. Nothing but feral and violence. Nothing but raw instinct. Of course, Moon Knight doesn't like hearing that because this is essentially it. That's all they have to look forward to. Dying, being brought back to life, rising, repeating until they are feral psychopaths. Of course, Hunter's Moon, he sees this as an honor. But Hunter's Moon also sees this as Khonshu had given them life, gave them divine purpose, gave them the tools and opportunity to revenge their own deaths. How can you see someone like this as a monster? Picking back up with Zodiac. They continue on their conversation, but Zodiac knows exactly who this doctor is. This doctor working side by side with Spectre for many years in third world countries with a rifle and ready to kill anybody that would stand in their way. Questioning how can you question what I do when you are no different yourself. But he also believes him to be nothing more than a puppet for Moon Knight. With Moon Knight and Hunter's Moon making their way to Subterranea. Hunter's Moon does question why you believe this area is within your territory. Moon Knight says that his territory is from heaven above to the bones of the earth below. It's all the province of the Midnight Mission if a traveler by night comes to ask for help. One of these individuals did come to Moon Knight asking for help. They were enslaved, being used for manual labor. That is why Moon Knight is here. He is coming to lay the smackdown on any that would enslave others. As Moon Knight and Hunter's Moon, they go in and they start laying down the hate. The prisoners breaking free, using their pickaxes against those that would keep them imprisoned. They fight, they kill, they earn their freedom. This is where we see Commodore Donnie Planet, as him and Moon Knight battle one another. Hunter's Moon leading the slaves against the captors. Moon Knight is trying to figure out exactly who sent these guys, who they are working for, and why they are doing this. With Hunter's Moon coming up behind him and boxing Planet's ears, they are able to put him down in the ground. With Hunter's Moon reiterating yet again that he needs to not be so casual with his life. Hunter's Moon has been trying to tell him this entire evening. The last time that he was resurrected, it was taxing. He did not come back as he should have. Not wholly. With Khonshu being imprisoned, his power has waned. He must be free to work his miracles, sending back a message that the next time one of his sons dies, while Khonshu is imprisoned, they will not be resurrected. Jumping back over to Zodiac, they finish up their conversation. Zodiac firmly believing that he has a victory over Moon Knight. The fact that he went against Moon Knight and he is still alive. The fact that he was able to kill Soldier. This makes him believe that it was a victory. This is when the Doctor chuckles, letting Zodiac know that he is a friend of Moon Knight, that he came here to keep tabs on him. But what is funny is that Soldier is alive. This Soldier is perfectly fine. That is when Zodiac loses it, saying that he saw him die, he shot him dead, that he won't be the last, that he is coming for anybody that is close to Moon Knight. So make sure you guys have subscribed to the channel, make sure that you like this video, and with that being said, let's dive into this breakdown. Alright gang, so as we dive into this issue, we are seeing that a number of people Moon Knight has worked with throughout the years, they are being taken off the board. They are taking out the shadow cabinet of Moon Knight, his agents, his informants. Now, originally he had died back in Mark Spector Moon Knight issue number 60. All of these informants, the shadow cabinet, they moved on. But now, in present day, someone is killing them. He believes it is because of him. He believes it is because they are all connected to him. And so, of course, Moon Knight takes on this responsibility. He burdens each and every one of their deaths as his fault. From Junior Birdman to Sheriff. All of these individuals have been taken off the board. Picking up with Tigra, she has rescued Kim Hong, aka Scout, getting her through the city and getting her somewhere she can be protected, as Moon Knight makes his way to Plesko's place, letting him know what's going on, getting in communication, not more than 2 buildings away when there is a giant explosion, another member taken off the board, but right now he doesn't have the time to grieve. Good news coming in from Soldier that Penny Annie has been saved. No word on Skeeter just as yet, but if she is in fact a mutant, then she might be safely tucked away on Krakoa. This is when Reese says that she needs to talk to Jake, cause she thinks she's figured out a pattern. But to have help with this pattern, she needs somebody that knows this city like the back of her hand. With Moon Knight switching up personalities, Jake is a cabbie in New York City. By mapping out the location of every death, Jake is able to see that there is a pattern, that they are moving in a singular direction. He has their route, and so now he knows who might be next. As Moon Knight takes off into the darkness, that is where we pick up with the Harlequin hitmen, making their way through the shadows. Moon Knight sees them. He believes that these are the assassins, but he wants to know what he is getting into. He doesn't want to jump into another fight that he may not be able to handle. And so, taking a quick picture of them from the shadows, he calls up 8-Ball, and 8-Ball lets him know exactly who these guys are. Moon Knight finds this hard to believe. After learning their identities, he knows them by reputation. Even 8-Ball has called these guys a joke before, but now they are coming and they are killing his people, demanding to know who sent them. They say that it was the ghost in the telephone. Moon Knight coming up from behind them, taking their weapons and putting them down. It doesn't take him long to get them back to Midnight Mission, where they are currently tied up. Moon Knight also called the help of Dr. Sternman. This is his therapist, and she is here to really do an evaluation. Moon Knight believes that these men have been taken over, that there is something wrong with them. His assessment is correct. They have been badly psychologically damaged by something or someone. Their minds have been hollowed out. They are nothing but mindless drones. Whoever this ghost in the telephone is, they have taken over the two minds, and they have been using them to hunt down Moon Knight's accomplices. With the doctor saying that she is not going to let these two out of her sight, then Moon Knight needs to turn them into the police so they can face justice. Moon Knight accepting these terms because he is not concerned about the hitman. He is concerned about the ghost in the telephone. Now, this is where we jump over to the summer of 1977. We have Blade versus Moon Knight. This is the first ever encounter of the Fist of Khonshu and the Daywalker, with Moon Knight going in on the Daywalker, trying to let him know that he is nothing more than a monster, and that she is going to finish off this job. Blade lets it be known that he is fighting the vampires, not participating with them. As the two of them continue this rumble, the conversation is starting and they're starting to see that they're not necessarily on the opposite sides. Learning that this is Blade, learning that this is the Daywalker. He was supposed to be just a rumor, but once they discover that they are actually working together, this is where we pick up the next night. As they make their way through the city, learning that the fires that are being set, these are done purposely, so that the vampires have locations to hide out. Boarded up buildings no one really focuses on. This gives the vampires locations where they can be hidden during the day, with Blade and Moon Knight coming down on them. They enter the building. The two of them start laying down the hate, using vinyl records to straight decapitate vampires. This is an absolute bloodbath, with vampires getting staked left and right. We see Moon Knight taking off her mask, taking off her hood to reveal that this is Denise, the Moon Knight of 1977. Now, this is the first time that Moon Knight has faced against Blade. Not sure if Moon Knight should end Blade right here and right now, but as long as Blade walks the path of righteousness, Moon Knight sees no reason in taking him out, with Blade going on to say that he is in the debt of Moon Knight. You allowed me to live, you allowed me to walk away from this without us actually having to fight. That is what takes us to present day. A new Moon Knight, but the same Blade. And Moon Knight is asking a favor. Reese is a young vampire, one that is working with Moon Knight, but he is unable to teach her how to be a vampire. There are not other vampires that he trusts, but letting Blade know she is ready to start whenever he is. Alright gang, so this story, it is picking us up 4 hours ago. Reese and Soldier, they decided that they were gonna go out dancing. Now, Soldier's not really a dancer, he's not even really a going out person, but they work together day in and day out. Reese has been trying to get Soldier to go out and do anything besides midnight mission business. Finally being able to convince him to do so, the two of them, they take their fill-in of blood. They take as much as they can possibly eat. The first rule of being a responsible vampire: you don't go hang out around humans without having a full stomach. Making sure that both of them are well topped off. They wait outside the midnight mission for Shannon and Teddy, two other vampires that they have decided to go out dancing with. As they hug, they handshake, they all greet one another. This is where the taxi cab pulls up, and we have Jake. Everybody hopping into the car, Jake says that he is going to take them wherever they need to go. While in the car, Reese and Jake have a conversation, simply asking how Mark is doing right now, because Mark is a little bit angry about what happened with the Shadow Cabinet to Dr. Plesko. And so far, they have theorized that maybe this was Zodiac. Jake and Steven have been asking around seeing what may shake out, but it does seem like a coincidence that they had sent Dr. Plesko to check up on Zodiac, and then not long after, Dr. Plesko wound up dead. But Jake tells them to not worry about any of this, that they are going out dancing today, they are living life to the fullest. And Jake just so happens to know every single bouncer in town, which means they can get into any club that they choose. And Reese goes on to talk about how this is the stuff that she used to do. Back before she was a vampire, she used to go out clubbing all the time. But now as a vampire, this is a much different experience. She is able to see in the dark. She can smell the life in every person around her. She can hear the blood in their veins. She can feel every clench of their heart. And she could also hear every human body responding to the music, heartbeats aligning to the bass, shaking their blood, rattling their lungs. It is almost a euphoric experience for her. It almost reminds her that she doesn't have a heartbeat herself. And while everybody is dancing, having a great time, we see Soldier, who is kinda trying to dance, but this isn't really his thing, with Reese forcing him onto the dance floor, saying that he takes orders from her today. And you have to remember, when it comes to Soldier, he is ex-Hydra. He has got beat up by a whole lot of people. Zodiac gave him one hell of a beating, and then he was killed by Zodiac, now ending up as a vampire. The only thing that he knows is duty. To be honest, nobody even knows his real name. Everybody just calls him Soldier. Reese believes that this is no way to live life, whether you are dead or not. That is why they took him dancing. And while they were having such a fantastic time, when they look over at the DJ, they see some people pulling the DJ away. Not understanding what is happening, they know that this can't be good. That is when they see a masked individual putting some kind of new record onto the turntables. This is when every human in this place, they begin to freak out. It didn't do anything to the vampires, but that sound that came out of that record, it made all the humans scream in pain, and then it made each of them all turn on each other, each of them trying to kill the person next to them. With our vampires trying to figure out what the heck is happening, Reese is concluding that it has to be the music, that they have to stop it. This is when from the skylight, we have Moon Knight, who comes in to crash this party. With Reese asking what he is doing here, Moon Knight says that he just wanted to make sure the two of them were safe. The plan is to fight their way out, that Moon Knight and Soldier can clear the path. But Reese is telling him that these are innocent people, that they don't want to hurt them, and the more blood that is spilled, the more likely one of the vampires may have a freak out. And so this is where Reese suggests doing something that she had learned from Blade. Concentrating very hard for a moment, we see her turn into smoke. She turns into a vapor. All she has to do is think about it, and it will happen. It is truly that simple. This is where we cut back to a moment with Blade letting her know that it really is that easy. But letting go like that, to let your molecules really dissipate, it is the easiest thing in the world. The hard part is bringing it all back together. There is always the possibility that she could turn into smoke and blow away forever, with Blade informing her that you better keep your wits about you, because the vampire unlifes. They've got plenty of fun tricks, but it plays for keeps. And so with her turning into smoke, she makes her way to the front stage. She makes her way to the turntables. Reforming herself, she crushes the records, letting them know that it is over. This masked individual says that it has just begun. One of them taking a shot at Reese. She gets hit in her shoulder, but there are no stakes, no silver, so she is going to be fine. She was the lucky one. At least 6 people died, dozens more had been injured, and it would have been a lot worse had it not been for her and Moon Knight's intervention. This is what takes us to present day. The therapist, Moon Knight, and Reese all having this conversation, recapping the events that had happened. And Reese lets us know that maybe it was Zodiac, but it wasn't targeted. This wasn't for Soldier, this wasn't for Reese or Teddy or Shannon. Nobody even knew that they were gonna be at this location. Jake had just decided on a whim to take them to this club. They were there by accident, but she does think that it is connected. The ones who had killed the friends of Moon Knight, they had been brainwashed by the ghost in the telephone. The people at the party were driven crazy by a record. Someone is experimenting using sound as a control weapon. And tonight was just a test. It is proof of concept, which means one thing. There is going to be another one. Alright gang, so we are picking up with Tigra, her kid, and Moon Knight watching the evening news. The news is out there. The Midnight Man is back. They know this because he is leaving behind his calling card, which is a pocket watch left on midnight. Tigra is wondering if they're gonna do anything about this, but Moon Knight has no plans to do so. And while these used to be one of his adversaries, he points out that both of them have died, one of them by his own hand. Moon Knight believes that this has to be nothing more than a copycat, and so in his eyes, this has nothing to do with them or the Midnight Mission. And according to the news, he has only been ripping off gangsters and breaking into rich people's houses. It has nothing to do with what has been going on with him. But this isn't enough for Tigra. She wants some answers and she wants to know what is going on. If Moon Knight's not gonna handle the situation, then she is. That's where she meets up with Flint the next day. Her predator instincts are going. They are running like a chainsaw. This has a hold on her and she is not gonna stop until she knows who the Midnight Man is. Being able to get all the files that the police currently has, she pins it up on her wall and she begins to investigate. Midnight Man number 3 appears a few months ago. For a while, he seemed to be doing the superhero trip, or at least sort of. Beating up gangsters, beating up the bad guys, and taking their money, leaving behind the clock reading midnight. But then he starts hitting law-abiding citizens' homes. But he wasn't stealing their money. This is when William asks if his father was rich, because Tigra says that if you're filthy rich, there is no way that you get that rich without being dirty. But Hank from time to time was definitely rich. He was a smart man, and he was not a man that was dirty. Though he did have his problems, he was a hero, one of the best. One night later, we are sitting on the rooftop of Tony Stark. Tigra using his Wi-Fi, uploading some things for family and friends of photos of William, so on and so forth, but also investigating. She has been looking and looking for some kind of link between all of these rich people. All 4 of the people who got robbed had their parents torn apart in a wild animal attack years ago. Going off this little information, we see her meet up a little bit later with Hawkeye. Hawkeye now being a Thunderbolt, he even offers her a badge to be a Thunderbolt. But she was a Defender. This is something that she's not looking to go back into. But getting some information from him, this is where she goes to find the Midnight Man. Made a list of a bunch of rich folks. Parents all died from the same time under incredibly gruesome circumstances. Of the ones still alive, only one hasn't been hit by the Midnight Man. And so Tigra waits. She stalks the shadows and she waits. It doesn't take long, but he shows up. And that is where Tigra is there to meet him. The 2 of them beginning to tussle. Taking him by surprise, she is able to jump on him. This is when he starts calling out her name. Ripping off the mask, it reveals to be Mark. And right now, Tigra is extremely livid because Mark lied to her. He goes on to explain that he needed the money after Zodiac had took all of his funding, that he had to pay Reese, he had to pay Soldier, he had to pay for everything. So he started ripping off gangsters, even Hydra. He knew that Moon Knight couldn't do this, so he did it. As the Midnight Man, he brought it back. With tears coming down Tigra's face, she says that she knows. She was talking to Hawkeye, and he kinda pulled the same stunt. But Moon Knight kept doing this. Eventually, it led him to all those houses. These people, their parents belonged to a group called the Committee. They used to go after Jack Russell, the werewolf, before he killed them. And then the masked individual, the guy who had taken over the DJ booth the other night, he was sent after Russell by the Committee. And now they know who he is. Sidney Sarnak, a sonic mind controller. As he goes on and on and on and talking about how he's figured all of this out, Tigra tells him to stop because he really has no understanding of how bad she is hurt right now. She has had his back. She flipped on the Avengers for him. She thought that they had trust between one another only to see that he has been lying. And while he tries to say that it's not a big deal, she tells him that he is not the one to decide this. This is when she brings up the fact that she hates lying. Even to this day, she has to lie to her son, something that she despises, because William's father, it wasn't Hank, it was the Skrull spy Creedy Knoll. She had replaced Hank when he was working for the Initiative before the invasion, but she is already dead. She is dead, and so is Hank, the real one who she did love. And so she lies to her son and she tells him that her father was a hero, going on to say that she walked into a vampire conclave with him, ran through a tomb dimension, fought psychotic mercenaries on the street with an army of zombies. She did all of this for Moon Knight, for Mark. And after all of that, you lying to me tells me that you cannot trust me. You can't even take your mask off in front of my son. And so she takes off, leaving Mark to think about all of this on his own on that rooftop. She heads home. Not long after, there's a knock at the door. When Tigra goes up to answer it, she sees that it is Mark. No Moon Knight, just Mark. He lets her know that the only thing he has ever been good at is hurting people, that he's extremely good at it. But sometimes, not often, but often enough, the people that he hurts are the ones that he loves. He knows that he should have trusted her, and that she was right. This is where he brings time bandits for all of them to watch together. Tigra, unable to stop herself, she goes in and she kisses Mark, obviously accepting his apology. She grabs hold of Mark, bringing him inside, saying that Mark is here, and she thinks that they are now boyfriend and girlfriend. Alright gang, I am actually really excited to tell you guys this story. This one is so much fun. I really didn't think it was going to be this great of an issue. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say that Moon Knight has been the best comic coming out, but it has definitely been consistent issue after issue. And the crossovers with Moon Knight at least are always a lot of fun. But this story starts us off outside the Midnight Mission. We have the new enforcers that stand outside. The new enforcers being Eel, Thermite, Blitz, and Tangle. And as they stand outside the Midnight Mission, they recognize that this is Moon Knight's house. This puts all of them at pause, not really sure if they want to just leap in and go after Dylan Brock, because Dylan Brock has gone inside the Midnight Mission. He has gone in here looking for some kind of help, and Dylan has come here because Eddie Brock had told him at one point in time that he could trust Moon Knight. Said that Moon Knight knows what it's like to have people think you're crazy, untrustworthy, unstable. Moon Knight, a little bit confused on this situation, he does ask Dylan, who is your dad? And why are the new enforcers on my doorstep? With it being easier to simply just show him. This is where we see Venom come out. As Dylan goes on to explain the situation, this is where we have Moon Knight go to the front door. And the new enforcers, they're sitting outside. One of them is saying, you know, hold on. Like, this is Moon Knight's place. We should really think about this. We should take pause and figure out what our next move is. Now, some of the others, they're saying that we are going after Venom for the money. There is a bounty on his head. We're gonna collect that bounty. We're not gonna let a guy in a cape stop us from getting our reward. That is when Moon Knight is at the front door. He is letting the new enforcers know that Dylan Brock is under his protection. This means that the new enforcers have two choices. They can go home and chalk this up to one misadventure, or they can come in and try to take him. But he does warn them that if you come inside, there will be nothing but pain and terror waiting for you in my house. Now, for those that have been reading Moon Knight, you know exactly what is capable here. You know exactly what can go down. The Midnight Mission is essentially a haunted house now, with Moon Knight making a deal, saying that this entity could live in the Midnight Mission, be its protector, but it also has the capability to eat people alive. The new enforcers, they have no idea about this. With Moon Knight going back inside, Dylan asks if that is going to work. Do you think they're gonna go away? And Moon Knight knows that they're not. These guys are mercenaries. If they don't bring Dylan in, they don't get their paycheck, with Dylan filling it in saying that the Life Foundation and Alchemex are the ones that put the bounty on his head because they want Venom. And they have been trying to track him down ever since Eddie Brock had died. At one point, they caught up with him. They caged him. They strapped him down. They poked and prodded him with needles. The truth is, Dylan has been through a lot. And Moon Knight goes on to say that he didn't really know Eddie that well. But Eddie was right. Moon Knight knows what it feels like to have people think you can't be counted on. But he is telling Dylan in this moment that you can count on me. He tells him to suit up and get ready, because there are 3 of them and 4 enforcers. The enforcers, wasting no time, they come charging in. They break down the front door. They call out Venom. But once they get inside, they find nothing around them. As they look around, they're a little bit confused, not sure where the heck they are, and the front door, it seems to be disappearing. It's moving further and further away from them. They have no idea what they just walked into. That is when the voice calls to them, the voice of Moon Knight. He tells them that they are lost, that they are damned. That's when the new enforcers, they start shooting in all directions. And once they have finished up, that is when Moon Knight and Venom go in. Superficially, Tangle is the least dangerous, but if she can immobilize either of them, it could very quickly be game over as the other 3 bring their powers to bear. So Venom hits her first, and he hits her hard. Moon Knight goes directly after Eel and Thermite, and once Tangle has been taken down, Venom goes after Blitz. One by one, we see the new enforcers being brought down. This fight lasting mere moments. Both Moon Knight and Venom, they laid down some hate. The 2 of them standing back to back and all of the enforcers knocked out unconscious on the ground. As they grab the bodies and they throw them out into the street. Moon Knight lets it be known that he could have let the mission eat them, but he wants to call this a teachable moment. And if he's being real with Venom, he's gone against Osborn's Venom a few years back. That was an absolute nightmare. But what he's telling Dylan is that you should have been able to handle the new enforcers without a problem. And Dylan knows this to be true, but there's something going on in the city. Symbiotes being sensitive to sound, they keep catching this weird frequency, like the whole city is a tuning fork. This has been throwing them off their game. This is when Moon Knight recognizes that they may have the same problem. Moon Knight has been trying to track down this evil sound engineer for quite some time, the one known as Sidney Sarnak. He appears to be the key to all of this, and now Venom is honing in on that frequency, and he is leading Moon Knight directly to where this guy is. It doesn't take him long to find the location. The 2 of them together, they jump in. They start taking down the goons one by one. Venom telling Moon Knight to go find your guy while he takes care of the henchmen. Running down the corridors, this is when he runs into a safe room. You see, Sidney knew that Moon Knight would come sooner or later. Somebody told him he would. Somebody had planned for this. Sidney refused to have Moon Knight take him in, but what he has also done is called the police. He called the cops on himself, that he's going to turn himself in for all of his crimes. He would rather do this than let Moon Knight take him, because after all, isn't prison better than the alternative, which is being interrogated by Moon Knight, with Dylan coming up saying that the cops are coming. The sirens are outside, and so Moon Knight and Venom, they hightail it out of here. And while technically the bad guy is in jail, Moon Knight needed to talk to him. He needed to find out who Sidney was working for. But that's another problem for another day. He tells Dylan that he did a fantastic job today, that his offer still stands. There will always be a place for Dylan Brock at the Midnight Mission. But Dylan knows that he can't stick around. He's got other things he's got to take care of. Moon Knight telling him that if you ever need me, all you have to do is call. He tells Moon Knight that you are a lot like my father. He also worked with great effort to be a better man. But he tells Moon Knight to be careful, because that is what got his father killed. Alright gang, so as we dive into this issue, we are picking up at Mark Spector's residence. And by all appearances, this is Mark's best life. Friends, family, children, you name it, everybody is here. everybody that is of any importance. And while Moon Knight would love to believe that this is all real, he would love to believe that this is the life he is supposed to be living. It takes a little bit of time, but he finally is able to snap out of this. The truth is, Doctor, the Pete, Randall, all of these people, they have already been long dead. That is when Moon Knight breaks out of this dream, with Moon Knight waking up in some kind of apartment building. We have Flint on the outside who is trying to get in communication with him. Moon Knight had been knocked unconscious, and now he is recognizing that somebody got him, but he is gonna make this somebody pay. That somebody is Morpheus. But Morpheus didn't make him live some kind of nightmare. No, for Moon Knight, this was much worse. Morpheus had given him everything that he had ever wanted, or at least what Morpheus believed what he wanted. Now Morpheus, the combination of rare viral infection along with untested treatment, this turned him into a monster that gave him power over people's dreams. And right now, he has an entire apartment building that is completely conked out. As Moon Knight goes to try and wake people up, this is when he is thrown into yet another dream. But this time, Moon Knight is out here being the hero, a person known as the Mighty Mailman. He is running over monsters left and right. Moon Knight's trying to figure out what the hell is going on. In this dream state, we see that Moon Knight is known as the Precautious Postie. He is the sidekick to the Mighty Mailman. And right now, they're driving through the city, running down all of these monsters. Now, Moon Knight knows that this is a dream state. He knows that this is Morpheus's doing. And we see Morpheus throw Moon Knight from one dream into another, going from the Mighty Mailman over to Jake. Right now, they are having a lavish party. The party that Jake has always wanted to throw. Everyone having a good time, everyone happy, everybody safe. This is when he calls out to Morpheus, and Morpheus answers. He lets it be known that you have caught me, that you caught Jake in a dream. You've gave him everything that he wants. But now Moon Knight wants to know what is the angle here. Morpheus has to ask the question, have you ever considered that I'm just giving people what they want? This is where Moon Knight finds himself at the Grant Manor. This is from the old days, when they had just started being Moon Knight, seeing people that he loves and cares about. What he is seeing is Steven's dream. This is a life without Moon Knight, but with Moon Knight being able to shatter this dream as well. This is what brings him to the next one where he is respected, one where the Avengers admit that they were wrong and they bring him onto the team. But Moon Knight knows that all of this is fake. As he punches Captain America, he battles his way through these dreams. That's when Morpheus finally decides that maybe this will be your happy ending. Your happy ending just being endless violence, punching and killing monsters for the rest of your existence. Morpheus is just trying to find what would make him happy. What is your happy ending? Finally being able to break free of all of this, Morpheus has given up. As Moon Knight makes his way to Morpheus, we see that Morpheus is in a really bad spot. In fact, Morpheus is dying. As Morpheus goes on to explain that he is giving up. He's never met anybody so willing to throw away happiness like Moon Knight does. As Moon Knight goes on to ask, what has happened to you? Morpheus tells us that some guy wanted to crew up with him, said that he was recruiting and really wanted to mess with Moon Knight. When Morpheus had told him no, this man didn't take no for an answer. His guys had put 3 bullets into Morpheus. Pretty sure they hit every single organ on the way out. Morpheus is saying that he is on his last page, crawling into this place like a dog that had been hit by a car. As he was dying, he was just hoping to help some people out. His whole life, he never did anything to help anybody. He had hurt people because he was hurt. But before he died, he just wanted to make some people happy, to do one good thing, even if it didn't matter. And he lets Moon Knight know that there is something that you can do for me. I want you to get the guy who did this to me. When Moon Knight asks for a name, asking who did this, Morpheus lets it be known that Black Spectre is the one responsible. Alright gang, so as we dive into this issue, we are picking up with Zodiac and the one and only Stephen Grant. The two of them are sitting down because Stephen is trying to figure out if Zodiac Zodiac is Black Spectre. Just recently, Plesko has died. He was killed. Steven is here to decide if he is the one responsible. And Zodiac says, so what if it was me? What are you gonna do if it was? Now, Steven's not one to get his hands dirty. He likes to do things a little more elegant, saying the next costume idiot Moon Knight sends here will come with a message that there is a price on Zodiac's head. This is when he does ask the question, are you the Black Spectre? And Zodiac cannot help but just laugh at him. And he says that if it was me, if it were me to kill you or your little friends, I would sign my name in blood, and it would be Zodiac. It would not be Black Spectre, saying that if I were to screw with you, you're gonna know it's me. In Zodiac's mind, Moon Knight has one archenemy, and it is Zodiac, telling Steven that you can let Black Spectre know when you find him, that Moon Knight better find him before Zodiac does. This is what takes us to the Midnight Mission. We have 8-Ball that is currently sitting here with Moon Knight, and 8-Ball is saying that Black Spectre came to him, offering something that he didn't even know that he needed, something that he wanted, said that he could be a part of killing Moon Knight. And so Moon Knight knows that he can go looking for Black Spectre through 8-Ball. 8-Ball saying that I could totally bring you to him. The truth is, 8-Ball wants nothing to do with killing anybody. He's trying to go on the straight and narrow. And so Moon Knight's letting him know that I'm gonna kill Black Spectre for you and as well as for me. This will be the third Black Spectre that he has put down. At this point, it just never gets old. As they make their way to Heart Island, they make landfall and they begin to investigate, with him and 8-Ball walking along trying to see what is going on here. We learn that 8-Ball is looking for a new line of work, and Moon Knight just so happens to need a pilot for those one occasions that he needs somebody to fly. The truth is, 8-Ball was a jet propulsion engineer. He designed and built a hovercraft in the shape of an 8-ball. And so Moon Knight has to wonder, what the heck are you doing robbing banks with a pool ball on your head? And 8-Ball lets him know that he lost his job and security clearance because of his gambling addiction. After that, there was nobody that was willing to hire him unless he was some kind of supervillain. Sometimes it's just easier to be the guy that everyone thinks you are. And in this moment, Moon Knight can actually understand him. He knows where he's coming from. But this is when the lights go on. We hear the voice, and 8-Ball, he goes running, apologizing to Moon Knight, saying that he was going to kill me. It appears that 8-Ball has set up Moon Knight. And so while Moon Knight faces against this new Black Spectre, we pick back up in prison. We pick up with Zodiac. And Zodiac is going to a man by the name of Ryan Trent. Zodiac believes that this is the new Black Spectre, and he is letting it be known with a knife in hand. Even if this isn't the right Black Spectre, he might just kill him anyway, to send a message. This is when they ask that you really want Black Spectre. And what Zodiac learns is that Black Spectre wants him as well, giving Zodiac an earpiece. He's letting him know that Black Spectre is looking forward to meeting you. As we pick up with Moon Knight, Black Spectre had just been coming through the speaker system. Moon Knight believed that he was about to face off with Black Spectre, only to find that he is not actually here. But what we do see are dozens and dozens of drones. This is because of Stuart Clark. Black Spectre offered him the chance to kill Moon Knight, and so he took it. As Moon Knight makes a run for it, these drones unloading all of their arsenal. And Stuart does have to ask the question, why the Moonarangs? Why don't you use guns? The truth is, you were obsolete. That if you used weapons that were actually more modern, you might have the opportunity of winning more fights than you lose. But as Moon Knight begins to take down these drones, he says that it's no big mystery. Moon Knight just doesn't like the person he is when he has a gun in his hands. But right now, that is exactly what he has. With Stuart's systems all going offline, one by one, Moon Knight is taking these down using the rifle to do so. 6 drones down. Moon Knight only being tagged a couple of times, but he is still moving. This is when Black Spectre comes over the communications, letting Mr. Clark know that he has done enough, at least for tonight. And Moon Knight scoffing at the idea that Stuart Clark was the guy that you sent after me. That if you're gonna call yourself Black Spectre, you gotta do better than this. This is when we have Manslaughter Marsdale. He comes charging in and just straight bulldogs Moon Knight in the back, the two of them beginning to tussle. And then we have the arrival of Man Mountain Marco. What Black Spectre is doing is getting all of Moon Knight's enemies together and they are attacking him. And while these guys think that they might have the upper hand, that they have the element of surprise, Moon Knight is formidable. He is not somebody that you want to go toe-to-toe with Moon Knight just smashing in some faces. Marco grabbing a chainsaw trying to use it against Moon Knight. Moon Knight catching it in his hands and flipping it against Marco. He is just absolutely tearing these guys apart, with these two quickly being defeated. Black Spectre talking over through the comm system, letting Moon Knight know that he went through great expense to get this next person here. As we see the bomb ticking down, the person that is here is none other than Waxman. Moon Knight had buried him alive, a demon of Moon Knight's own making, letting Moon Knight know that this is why he loved watching him. So fascinating. All of these self-made demons. As Waxman begins to swallow up Moon Knight, there is some kind of explosion, and showing up is none other than 8-Ball, saying that he couldn't simply leave him behind. Knowing that Waxman is going to reform or something soon, they gotta get back to the moonboat. Black Spectre letting 8-Ball know that he is a dead man for this. Moon Knight wondering what the heck is 8-Ball doing here. And 8-Ball says that he had to, that he wanted to. The truth is, he didn't want to be the guy everyone thought he was anymore. This is where we pick up with Black Spectre. 8-Ball has foiled his plan, and back in the prison, this is where the riot is picking up. Zodiac putting his mask back on. Riots in every single corridor. Bullets flying in all directions. As Zodiac waits for those that might come for him, believing that Black Spectre is coming to end his life. This is where we see Black Spectre right at the cell door of Zodiac. Alright gang, so we got Hunter's Moon sitting down with Dr. Sternman, the therapist of Moon Knight. Now, he finds it very difficult to even share anything with him. This is not something that would come naturally to him, but his problems have been stemmed from his most recent death, his second death. His first death in the service to Khonshu. Now, for a Fist of Khonshu, this should be nothing, but he is becoming undone. This is almost as if he is on his 10th or 12th death. Right now, Khonshu incarcerated in Asgard. He can no longer resurrect any of his fists. Hunter's Moon was the last resurrection, and even then, it was flawed. Hunter's Moon is concerned on who he is and what he is becoming. This is what takes us to Subterranea, a most recent conflict with Hunter's Moon and some other individuals. The little worshippers of Khonshu, the brothers and sisters of Hunter's Moon and Moon Knight, the worshippers of a god. They live not under the night sky, but under the earth. This is really giving us a history lesson on the first Fist of Khonshu. The first Fist was chosen among these people, chosen to be the first Fist, much like Hunter's Moon. And the first Fist, it lives inside of all the Fists of Khonshu, to include Moon Knight, but Moon Knight is kind of cut off from all the other Fists. Where Hunter's Moon, he is connected to them. They are a part of him. As they make their way down these tunnels, they run into men who are mining. Commodore Planet had them digging tunnels, but these tunnels led to nowhere. Whoever had hired Planet to do this, they're trying to do the work again. With Hunter's Moon being the first to strike, we see the past lives of the Fists of Khonshu surrounding the Hunter's Moon, and he is about to lay down some hate. We see him begin to just tear these guys apart. Blood strewn in all directions, broken bones left and right. Since being in service and being a Fist of Khonshu, he has questioned his father's wishes in the past, but the fact remains that his service to Khonshu has saved the lives of those who otherwise would have died. In his eyes, this means that he serves the greatest of the great gods. But in this conflict, we see Hunter's Moon knocked down to the ground, and we have the arrival of Vibro. He was sent here by Black Spectre. Black Spectre believed that he was going to have Moon Knight here. Instead, it is Hunter's Moon. And Hunter's Moon, he knows that Vibro is valuable. A man that isn't simply a faceless minion. He's a man with information. This means Hunter's Moon must take him alive. He must get him talking. But on this night, it was out of his control, with Hunter's Moon being knocked down to the ground, his own weapons used against him. This is where we see the power come out of the Fist of Khonshu. The very first fist of Khonshu, not only does he help Hunter's Moon rise up, but he completely takes over for a moment. He is able to take Vibro down in an instant. The persona of the dead fist of Khonshu took over his body, but it was more than that. They had become one. The first fist, a primordial champion, utterly without mercy. This is what Hunter's Moon had meant when he said that there was a flawed resurrection. The levee has broken, and at times he cannot tell where the other fists end and where he begins. He is losing himself to the dead. He has always known that madness would be his fate at the end of the day, as it is for every fist of Khonshu. But Moon Knight almost was killed. The Black Spectre intends something terrible for this city. Zodiac has been freed. Spectre, himself, Tigra, the vampire children, they are all at war. He cannot let this personality bleed turn him from warrior to liability. This is where Dr. Sternman lets him know that I'm not sure if I can help you with those issues. She's not a psychic, she's not a mutant, she's not a magician. But what she can offer is talking, saying let's get rid of the formalities. Let's have just a regular conversation, introducing herself as Andrea. Hunter's Moon has gone by many names over the years, but his true name is Yaye. Alright gang, so as we dive into this issue, we are picking up with Hunter's Moon and Moon Knight, the Fists of Khonshu. They are currently at the Midnight Mission. They stand over the body of Vibro. With him in a coma, they have to try and figure out a way to solve this, because they need information from Vibro. They need to figure out what Black Spectre is up to. Not only that, Zodiac broke out of jail, and so they take a concoction, and it puts the two of them into a slumber. It throws them into the mindscape of Vibro. His sweat acts as a psychic bridge. This allows him to control people. So the plan is that they harvest his sweat, dose Vibro and themselves, use Harley as a medium to project their consciousness into Vibro's mind. That way they get what they need. As we see the two of them landing in Vibro's mind, they were a little concerned that the intrusion of two God-touched individuals might scramble his brain. And as they get in here, they see an individual being chased by Vibro. They have no idea who that is or why it's being chased inside the mind of Vibro, but it looks like there's someone else here with them. Not wasting any time, the Fists of Khonshu, they tackle Vibro. They start to give him a beatdown. That is when Jake and Steven, the other personalities of Moon Knight, they go to rescue this individual that is running, to get him to safety. Hunter's Moon finding it very clever that the other personalities can manifest themselves inside of this space. They are inside of a mind, so they can do a lot in here they couldn't do in the real world. We learn that the man that is in here, his name is Alton. The last thing he remembers is falling, and then he ended up here. The man is nothing more than a geologist. He is not a psychic, he's not a supervillain, he's not a mutant. All he knows is that he is here, and Vibro has been chasing him, hunting him down, trying to eliminate him. As they ask him about Black Spectre, he knows that that is who they worship in here. That Black Spectre is going to give them their revenge. Their revenge on everybody. On the entire city. Black Spectre wants to kill Manhattan. He wants to watch as the city kills itself. That's where Vibro comes into play. Vibro and Sarnak, another of the Spectre's creatures. He knows about sound, a sound that can drive people insane. Vibro has been drilling all of these holes underneath the bedrock of Manhattan. He is creating enormous resonators. This will broadcast Sarnak's maddening music. The Black Spectre is turning Manhattan into a giant tuning fork. He will project this sound throughout the city, and everybody is going to be affected. With Jake and Steven giving Moon Knight all of this information, they got an idea of what Black Spectre's plan is, but now they gotta get out of here. This is where we see dozens of Vibros begin to attack them. Too many to fight, being completely outnumbered. But with the Fists of Khonshu talking to one another, after reading the dossier on Vibro, the real name of Vibro is Alton. And so Moon Knight telling Hunter's Moon that I need you to hold them off for a moment. That we are in the mindscape of Vibro. In this place, you are never alone. Just like I can manifest my other personalities, you can manifest the other Fists of Khonshu. This is where we see Hunter's Moon call upon his brothers and sisters. Fists of their father, greatest of the great gods Khonshu. We see the fists of Khonshu from past. They all manifest and they are taking on the army of Vibros. This is giving Moon Knight an opportunity to talk to Ultin. They are letting him know that he didn't come from outside of this place. Ultin has always been here. Ultin is Vibro. When he was talking earlier about remembering that he was falling, he had fallen into the San Andreas Vault. Along with him was his equipment. This is what turned him into Vibro. And Ultin never crawled out. All of these Vibros, they want to hurt and punish you. They want to do this because Ultin is the last part of a good man. They want to erase Ultin completely so that there is only Vibro. This is when Ultin says that this is the Olympus Room in the Mount building. Geologically, it is perfectly situated. They now have a location. They know what Black Spectre is up to, and they have a way to stop him. Ultin now having himself back. He tells the Fists of Khonshu that you guys can leave, because this is now my battle. An opportunity for me to take back my mind, to take back my life, to take back my body. And so Ultin, facing off against himself, he chants for all of them to come at him as he prepares for the battle inside his own mind. We pick up with Black Spectre. They know that Vibro has been kidnapped. They know it won't be long before Moon Knight is able to break him. This means they are moving up their timeline. They plan to strike tonight. Dive into this issue, we are picking up at the Mount. The Mount is the location where Black Spectre is preparing for his battle, where he is preparing to take down the whole city. With the help of 8-Ball, Moon Knight and his crew, they ride on the hover rack. And as they approach the Mount, this is when the rockets come. Multiple missile locks shooting the hover rack right out of the sky. With the hover rack having engine failure, we see the aircraft go crashing into the Mount, with everybody getting up out of the rubble. Tigra, Hunter's Moon, and Moon Knight, they're all okay. But 8-Ball has broken his arm. Moon Knight telling him that he has done his job, he needs to lay low, stay safe until this is all over. And he will know when all of this is over when he sees Black Spectre falling at terminal velocity from the windows. This is what throws us back just a couple of hours. Moon Knight and his team, they are preparing to breach the Mount. Now, the Mount, it never recovered after Druid Walsh had blown up the Olympus Room. They got Soldier down on the ground floor doing recon. And at ground level, these guys are truly dug in. They are waiting for any kind of resistance. They are waiting for Moon Knight, knowing that the ground level won't be a good way to go in. Not only would they have to go in from the very bottom floor and work their way up, they don't have the time for that. That is why they rode the hover rack. As we pick up inside the Mount, Moon Knight, Hunter's Moon, and Tigra, they go charging in, and the first obstacle is Sarnak. Sarnak and all the men waiting for them to arrive. He gives the order and he says to kill all of them. This is where Hunter's Moon says that they don't have time for a fight. He tells Moon Knight and Tigra to backtrack and continue up the building. He is going to handle Sarnak and all these minions. As we jump back to the past, we pick up with a conversation between Moon Knight and Reese. Moon Knight is letting Reese know that you're not coming with us. She has the skills and the capability to be able to fight this fight. And Moon Knight knows it is unfair for him to ask her to stay behind. But if Moon Knight dies out there, he is letting Reese know that the Midnight Mission is yours. Because everything that they have built, it is too important to let it die. Reese very unhappy with this, but she agrees to it. Taking us back to the Mount. Moon Knight and Tigra making their way up the building. But this is when Tigra steps on a booby trap. She heard the click and she can now smell the plastic explosives. If she is to step off of this thing, it will immediately detonate. And while Moon Knight knows that he can defuse this, he doesn't have the time. He doesn't want to leave her behind. But she knows if that sound goes off, even while she's standing on this, she is dead anyway. She kisses Moon Knight and she tells him to go save the city, with him promising that he will return. Moon Knight takes off. And there is nothing that is stopping him. Every goon that gets in his way, he absolutely destroys. Even taking a knife in the back, he is still cracking skulls. This is where we pick up with Zodiac. and Zodiac currently on the phone with Black Spectre, letting Black Spectre know that you can't plan for Moon Knight. Now, he's on board with everything that Black Spectre's doing. He loves the idea. He is just not confident that they can actually prepare for Moon Knight. He is a chaos agent. Anything he touches, it spins out of control. The plan may be in motion, and Zodiac is definitely rooting for Black Spectre. But at the end of the day, this is Moon Knight we are talking about. That is when the door breaks down and Black Spectre is confronted by Moon Knight. And if Black Spectre is being honest, he didn't even expect Moon Knight to make it this far. All the fighters, all the traps, all of those weapons. But Black Spectre is glad he made it up here, because Black Spectre would like to beat him to death with his own hands. With Moon Knight not wasting any more time, he goes in. With him charging in on Black Spectre, we pick up at the Midnight Mission. Standing outside the Midnight Mission, we have Zodiac. While Moon Knight and his team have been working on taking down Black Spectre had sent Zodiac to take down the Midnight Mission, but Zodiac has no idea what he is in store for. This is what jumps us into issue 29. We pick up on the top floor of the Mount, the battle between Black Spectre and Moon Knight. While they are fighting, Moon Knight is trying to figure out what the point of all of this is, turning the city into a weapon, wondering, did you do all of this just because of me? And more than that, he wants to know who is under the mask. Who are you and why are you doing this? As their battle rages on, we pick up on the 20th floor. We pick up with Tigra, sitting here waiting for this thing to either detonate or that kill switch to go off. But this is when Soldier arrives. He fought his way up 20 floors. For Soldier, that's not a big deal, mostly because when Moon Knight and them attacked, it drew all the attention to the upper floors. Adding the fact that Soldier not only is trained by Hydra, but is mostly bulletproof, and there was plenty of blood around as he made his way up so he could heal himself. So going up those 20 floors, taking out all of Black Spectre's men along the way. For Soldier, this was just another day. Luckily for Tigra, he's got EOD training, explosive ordnance disposal. As he gets to work taking care of this, we pick up at the Midnight Mission. Zodiac has made his way inside the Midnight Mission, and when Reese goes to attack, Zodiac has something very unique on him. Now, he's not a man that believes in gods, so a crucifix or something of that nature, it wouldn't work against a vampire. It turns out, he does have a holy symbol though, one that he has absolute faith in. That symbol is himself, having a chain that says Zodiac on it. This is his holy relic that now works against vampires. And so as the two of them begin to fight, we pick up back at the Mount. Moon Knight and Black Spectre still going at it. The truth is, all Black Spectre wants is to kill Moon Knight. And so this is where Moon Knight turns on the rage, telling him that if you really want to be Black Spectre, this is what it means to be Black Spectre. As Moon Knight just beats the bricks off of this dude, smashing him up real nice and proper. This is when he takes off the mask of Black Spectre, and it is revealed that this is Ryan Trent. Ryan Trent is the second iteration of Black Spectre, and this only confuses Moon Knight more. With Hunter's Moon being done with Sarnak, he knows that they need to neutralize the broadcast system that is on the top floor. Soldier and Tigra headed up there as well. Moon Knight is letting everybody know that Spectre is down. He's about to blow the broadcast gear, but none of this makes any sense. Ryan Trent, the second Black Spectre, the one he put down years ago, he was in jail. This is when Moon Knight gets hit with many rounds to the chest. Moon Knight down on the ground bleeding out, and then a giant explosion that stops everybody from reaching Moon Knight. That way him and Black Spectre can have a real conversation. Meanwhile, at the Midnight Mission, we have Zodiac that is trying to kill Reese, turning herself into mist, letting Zodiac know that I've learned some new tricks. But more than that, the last time you came for me, you couldn't cross the mission's threshold. She tells him that that was a good instinct, because now you are never walking out of this place again. This is when she tells the Midnight Mission to take him. as we pick back up with Black Spectre and Moon Knight. Black Spectre in a very bad spot, unable to even get up to his feet. Black Spectre apologizes and says to forgive the deception. Ryan Trent really did want to kill Moon Knight, but the real Black Spectre, he needed a little more time to get everything ready. He goes on to tell Moon Knight that maybe it was unwise to call himself Black Spectre. It was practically an invitation to Moon Knight, the red flag to a bull, but he couldn't resist himself. Moon Knight saying that you're dead, that you killed my shadow cabinet, you killed my friend, you killed Plesko. This is when Black Spectre says yes, Plesko, that if you speak the devil's name, he shall appear. With Black Spectre taking off his mask, it is revealed that Black Spectre, the third iteration, is in fact Plesko, Moon Knight's own friend from his own shadow cabinet. Alright gang, so as we dive into this issue, we are picking up with Plesko and Moon Knight. In the last issue, we learned that the third iteration of Black Spectre is in fact his old friend from his shadow cabinet, Plesko. And at this point, with Moon Knight bleeding out on the ground, he is in an utter state of confusion. He thought Plesko was dead, but now he's trying to figure out the why. This is when he goes on to explain that the first Black Spectre, he wanted the city to love him. Plesko's aim was a little more simple. He just wanted to watch as the city goes insane and kills itself. After all of these years, he has gotten so good at hiding who he truly was, what his interests really were. All the time that he has known Moon Knight, they have never known this. Nobody thought that it was odd a trained psychologist embarked on a mercenary career in North Africa. For Plesko, it was curiosity. He is a student of atrocity. He likes to see all the horrible things that people do to one another. This is what drew him to Mark in the first place. The toughest man that he had ever met. The most bloody-minded, unkillable creature he had ever encountered. He was in disbelief the day that he heard somebody had killed him. This is where we pop up in Sudan back in the day, when Plesko went to meet the man that killed him, that killed Spectre. This is where he had a meeting with Bushman, and he told Bushman that he wanted to work for him. He wanted to see what Mark saw. He wanted to see what Bushman does. That is where this entire story for Plesko truly began. This is what takes us to the Midnight Mission, with Reese telling him that you're really stuck here. You're not going anywhere. The mission now has you. Reese is taunting him, letting him know that you're nothing more than a henchman for Black Spectre now, that you had goals were so much higher. Of course, Zodiac doesn't see himself as a henchman. He sees it more like a mutually beneficial relationship. He likes the plan, driving all of Manhattan insane. He likes to think that this is something that he would think of. But he does say the name Plesko. This is the first time that Reese is hearing that Black Spectre is in fact Plesko. But as we pick up back at the Mount, we pick up with Plesko and Moon Knight. Plesko continuing on his story about everything he learned from Bushman, but then later on, he started working with Moon Knight, and Moon Knight left a bloody wake behind him like a shark. Eventually, he became bored of just observing. He wanted greater vistas of terror and atrocity. He wanted to put his hand in. His curiosity was no longer satisfied by watching others work, and so he took inspiration from Moon Knight himself. The drama of masks and capes. He staged his death, assassinating the other members of the Shadow Cabinet as a smokescreen. Mid-conversation, he hears a beeping. The broadcast system is ready. He tells Moon Knight that it was great catching up, but he's got a helicopter to go get, telling him that he has always valued their friendship. He says goodbye to Mark. As we pick up back at the Midnight Mission, Zodiac is going on about how Black Spectre impressed him. All he ever wanted for Mark from Moon Knight was happening to Plesko, a supervillain being born. He wanted to watch this with Moon Knight. Instead, he's watching it happen with Plesko. But what Zodiac didn't know is that there is no more resurrection for Moon Knight. And so he assumed that Plesko kills Moon Knight. Moon Knight comes back and we do this all over again. But when Reese informs him that this is not a game, there is no more resurrection. If Black Spectre kills Mark, there is no returning. And so Reese says you better hope Mark survives, because otherwise you would miss your shot and you let the Spectre take it from you. Back at the Mount, we have the shadow of Khonshu that has come to his child. He has come to Moon Knight, letting him know that I cannot save you. His power is exhausted and he can do nothing, imprisoned as he is. He is dying in the service of Khonshu. whether he acknowledges it or not. Even if he rejected him, betrayed him, he has distinguished himself. And for what it is worth, Khonshu is proud of the work he has done. And while Khonshu may not be able to save him, he will await him. He will await for when Moon Knight takes the seat right next to Khonshu, with Moon Knight terrified, knowing that he can't do this alone. This is when Jake and Steven come to him. They let him know that he is never alone and they are right here by his side, rooting him on the entire way. He knows that there is no coming back from this. What is about to happen is gonna be a one-way ticket, and they're gonna go out with a bang. As we pick up back in the Midnight Mission, Zodiac has started to talk to the mission itself, demanding to get out of this place. He tells the Midnight Mission to read his mind, see what he wants, see if Zodiac is lying, telling the mission that they want the same thing now. Zodiac knows it just as much as the mission does, so he says to let me out, and that is when a doorway appears in front of him. Reese completely confused on what is going on, but Zodiac has just made a deal with the Midnight Mission, saying that he will see her around because he's got some work to do. Back at the Mount, we have Moon Knight, making it to the control center. Knowing that it is not too late, he still has the opportunity to save everybody. And as that frequency goes off, the sound going across all of Manhattan, in a matter of moments, this city will be driven insane, and everybody will be at each other's throats. Moon Knight saying his prayer, Jake and Steven saying their last goodbyes, each of them raising a toast, cause it has been one hell of a ride. Moon Knight presses that button, and the entire top floor, it detonates. Flames shoot out in all directions. A blast so devastating, nobody could survive. This is what takes us to later on. Black Spectre returning back to home base, only to find that Zodiac is already here. He told Plesko you can't plan for Moon Knight. He failed, and in this supervillain game, there is a price to be paid for failure. But more than that, Zodiac's feelings got hurt. Moon Knight was taken away from him. He killed him and he's not coming back. Plesko took what was Zodiac's. You may not be able to plan for Moon Knight, but Zodiac has a plan for him. He wanted atrocity, and so Zodiac is going to give him the full experience. As we jump over to the Midnight Mission, we are seeing that there are some things that have changed here. The statue that stands in this room, it is no longer Khonshu, but the statue that stands is Moon Knight. And now sitting in the chair carrying on the legacy is the vampire Reese. By her side is Hunter's Moon, Tigra, Soldier, and 8-Ball. Moon Knight may be gone, but the Midnight Mission will continue on. And that will be the end of this issue. This is going to bring Jed McKay's Moon Knight run to a close, though there is a new issue, a new series that is starting up next month. It is The Vengeance of the Moon Knight, on sale January 2024. So this is one I definitely called. They were going to kill Moon Knight and Reese was going to take over in his stead. I was really hoping that this wasn't the outcome. Quickly thinking about it, obviously it seems like Hunter's Moon would be the logical answer. But if you really stop and think about it, Reese does make the most logical sense. Hunter's Moon had no intention of starting the Midnight Mission. In fact, when he was first introduced, he tried stopping Moon Knight from doing everything that he is doing. Reese has been the one from the early days, being right there by his side, doing everything they can to save as many people as they can. And so I think it is fair that Reese has taken over the Midnight Mission. But I want to explore another theory that I saw in the comments from the last video. A theory that Moon Knight is going to be taking over as kind of the god of the moon. He is going to be filling the shoes of Khonshu, while Khonshu is imprisoned in Asgard. And I think this actually makes the most logical sense. If you're gonna take Moon Knight out of the picture, obviously you don't want to kill him off completely. At the end of the day, this is comic books. But what's a way that you can take him off the board, still have him incorporated in the Moon Knight stories, in a way that's not gonna necessarily make fans mad, but also gives you the option to open up the door for Moon Knight's return. And so theoretically, If Mark fills the shoes of Khonshu, everything can continue on as it is, at least until Khonshu is released from Asgard in whatever capacity that may look like. Either way, it is a sad day. The day that Moon Knight died and couldn't be resurrected. What these stories will look like moving forward are going to be very interesting, but after 30 issues, Jed McKay really did knock it out of the park. This Moon Knight series has been absolutely phenomenal. We have been covering it since issue number 1, and I have not been let down. There's a couple of fillers in here, but for the most part, Jed McKay knocked it out of the freaking park. The story is phenomenal. The new characters introduced didn't feel forced in any way, shape, or form. A second fist of Khonshu, it only makes sense when we think about you having 2 fists. We always thought about the fist of Khonshu in the metaphorical sense, that he is the living weapon of this god. But if there is 1 fist, it is fair to assume that there might be a second, one for each hand. The introduction of the Midnight Mission is easily one of my favorite things brought into comics. The Midnight Mission being a mind of its own. It's gonna be very interesting to see what kind of deal it made with Zodiac. Maybe Zodiac wants to try and free Khonshu himself so that Moon Knight can be resurrected and he can continue on his little mission of trying to turn Moon Knight into the ultimate supervillain. Because that is the only reason I could think that the Midnight Mission would release him to begin with. Is if Zodiac wanted to bring back Moon Knight. He wanted to save Moon Knight. Why wouldn't the Midnight Mission also want this? It's gonna be interesting to see what direction they go. I'm very curious on the deal that they made. But no matter the case, this story is far from over. The death of Moon Knight is only the beginning. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your theories. If you would like to get completely caught up on everything going on with this series, go ahead, check out the link in my description as well as the top of this video. It'll get you completely caught up on everything that has been going on with Jed McKay's Moon Knight. If you would like to support the channel, you can always do so by joining the channel membership. Much like Patreon, having multiple different tiers, from $1 to $50, from loyalty badges to comics every single month. Not only are you helping out the channel tremendously, but you are getting tons of perks in the process. If you're unable to do this, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like this video, hit that notification bell, and with that being said, until the next breakdown.